Chapter 121, Enrollment Test Part 1. In the plaza, beside a lake that was located on the eastern side of the capital, a crowd of young boys and girls could be seen. They were the aspiring students of the Royal Academy and they were patiently waiting for the registration process to begin. William, literally stood out from the crowd because he was riding on top of a 1.5-meter tall Angorian goat. Almost everyone near him was looking at him with various expressions. Although William was wearing simple clothes, his bearing and good looks made him an eyesore to the boys and eye candy for the girls. William was someone who enjoyed attention, so he made sure to get the most out of it. He waved, smiled and winked at the pretty girls who were looking at him with starry eyes. As for the boys, he ignored them completely, which made the pitiful guys curse him inside their hearts. "Ha, what a show-off," Ian sneered from where he stood. "I thought that William would feel out of place, but it seems like he is enjoying the attention of the pretty girls," Isaac smirked. "He should try to be Loki for a change," EST grumbled as he narrowed his eyes. "If this goes on, he will really be alienated if he gets accepted at the academy." The three children were watching William from the carriage that was parked not far away from the plaza. The three of them had already enrolled at the Royal Academy. Due to EST's special circumstances, he and his two companions were allowed to bypass the tests for the new students and were allowed to enroll directly. Every year, thousands of children and teenagers would gather in this very plaza to take part in the Royal Academy's selection process. Only those that had certain qualifications would be admitted into the Royal Academy of the Helan Kingdom. When the sun was about to reach its zenith, a middle-aged man wearing a purple robe flew above the crowd and made an announcement. "Everyone, thank you for coming. The first test of the Royal Academy is about to begin," the middle-aged man announced. "The first test is simple. All you need to do is cross the Bridge of Iron Will and you will be allowed to take the next test. Those who fail will automatically be disqualified from enrolling in the academy this school year." As if waiting for him to finish his announcement, a majestic bridge started to magically appear from the other side of the lake. Its end curved upwards and extended towards the plaza. When the bridge had fully formed, the middle-aged man raised his hand and announced the start of the first test. Everyone who planned to enroll at the academy rushed towards the bridge. William gazed at the crowd, but he didn't seem to be in a hurry to participate. He was planning to do some observation first to see what kind of challenge the bridge imposed to those who dared to challenge it. The first batch of children managed to travel up a fourth of the bridge, before they started to slow down. It was as if a strong pressure was pressing on their shoulders that every step seemed to be a gargantuan task. Of course, there were others who shrugged this pressure off and walked with even steps. After waiting for 5 minutes, more than half of the challengers were unable to move forward. Some of them were sweating buckets, while others were gritting their teeth. All of them were doing their best to endure, but some of them had already reached their limit. The children who had already lost their strength and resolve, were automatically teleported back to the plaza. William watched as some of them knelt down on the ground, panting for breath. A few others started to cry, and it made the atmosphere very depressing. William sighed and caressed his mama Ella's neck. "Mama, let's go." "Me." Ella walked up to the bridge with even steps. The middle-aged man, who was the current examiner, looked at William with an amused expression. It was not the first time he had seen someone use a spirit beast to challenge the first trial, but it was his first time seeing a domestic Angorian goat take the challenge with its master. There were no rules that said that spirit beasts, or any other form of beast, were not allowed to participate in the trial. Ella stepped onto the bridge with confidence. Each step was at an even pace. William and her were not in a hurry. Both of them were observing the children who were ahead of them. The number of potential students who had managed to reach the halfway mark had dwindled once again. This time, less than 100 were able to move forward. Soon, William and Ella passed the halfway mark of the trial. William was starting to feel a certain amount of pressure pressing down on him, but it was not a big deal. It was nothing compared to the torture that he had undergone under his master, Celine's, hand in order to increase his resistance against curses and poison. The struggling children raised their heads to look at William, who was having it easy. Some of them felt envious, while others thought that it was unfair. What they didn't know was that William and Ella were enduring twice the amount of pressure that these children were experiencing. The reason? The effect of the trial stacked if someone were to use a mount to help them clear it. This was a secret that only the examiners of the Royal Academy were aware of. The middle-aged man nodded his head in appreciation as his eyes observed William. "Looks like we got a few rough gems this year," the examiner thought. "I pray that they all make it through the last trial." When Ella finally stepped onto the other side of the lake, the trial ended as well. William was the last to take part in the trial, so naturally, the moment he cleared it marked the end of the trial. "First of all, let me congratulate all of you," the middle-aged man said with a smile. "Out of the thousands who came this year, only 50 managed to clear the first trial. However, let me remind all of you that this is just the beginning. You still have 4 more trials to complete before you are eligible to enroll at the Royal Academy." The middle-aged man waved his hand and all the students floated in the air. "I will now take all of you to the place of the second trial." The examiner didn't say anything else and flew eastward. The students flew behind him and each of them had determined expressions on their faces. Soon, they flew over a forest that was located outside the city. After 5 more minutes of flying, the middle-aged man landed in a small clearing near the center of the forest. When everyone's feet were securely planted on the ground, the middle-aged man pointed at a flag fluttering in the distance. "Your next test is to reach that flag within 4 hours, the examiner explained. "Know that this forest is inhabited by spirit beasts and they will attack you if you encounter them. The second trial is about having the ability to reach the goal despite the adversities." The middle-aged man handed a purple crystal to the children who were taking the trial. If you wish to give up, just crush the crystal in your hand. The staff of the school will immediately come to your rescue, the examiner stated. You only have one life, so make sure that you treasure it well. Let's meet again at the finish line. With that, the examiner left the children to fend for themselves. One particular young boy snorted and walked in the direction of the flag with confidence. From his body language alone, one could tell that he was not afraid of the spirit beasts that were lurking in the forest. William, on the other hand, narrowed his gaze. As someone who had faced off against centennial and millennial beasts, he was quite sensitive when it came to strong presences. There was a creature in the forest that was looking at them from a distance. William couldn't see it, but he could tell that it was very strong. What perplexed the red-headed boy was that the beast was purposely making its presence known, instead of hiding it. However, only those with very keen senses, or those who had experienced life and death battles would be able to perceive it. Mama Ella, we should stay away from it, William said in a voice that only Ella could hear. Me. Ella nodded her head in agreement. The Angorian goat walked to the other side of the forest. The route William chose was not the route that would take them directly to the flag. Instead, he intended to take a detour to avoid the strong presence that was waiting along the shortest route towards their destination. Chapter 122, Enrollment Test Part 2. What a stupid test, a young man, with short brown hair and green eyes, said as he walked towards the flag in the distance. He was the one who chose the shortest route among the participants. During the first trial, he was the first to arrive on the other side of the lake. Because of this, his confidence was at its peak and he thought that he was the best among the latest batch of examinees that were aiming to get enrolled at the Royal Academy. Suddenly, a boar-type spirit beast appeared out of nowhere and charged at him. Small fry, the young boy sneered as he raised his right hand, aiming it at the boar. Boulder smash! A boulder that was at least a meter big, shot out from the boy's hand and slammed at the charging boar's head with a resounding crash. The boar squealed in pain, but the boy wasn't finished by a long shot. After getting a clean hit, he summoned a sword in his hand and ran towards the boar. Channeling his magic into the sword, the boy made a wide strike with the intention of cleaving the boar into two. Sensing that death was upon it, the boar gathered every bit of its strength to try and prop itself up, but it was too late. With a strike that was strong enough to crush boulders, the sword in the boy's hand sliced off the boar's head from its body, leaving a shower of blood in its wake. Tisk, not even a challenge, the boy clicked its teeth as he continued to travel along the path that he had chosen. What the boy didn't know was that something was watching him from the depths of the forest. A demonic creature with a single eye on its forehead gazed at the boy with contempt. Although it only had a single eye, it had seen everything that had happened with incredible clarity. After seeing the boy's abilities, the creature confirmed that its prey was just a little lamb walking straight into a wolf's den. It licked its lips in anticipation as its eye glowed with greed. It was looking forward to the delicious fresh meat that it was going to have for lunch. Mama, did you feel that? William asked. Me. Such a sinister creature, William frowned. Me. At least grade B in the threat rankings. Me. Sounds like a pain. William sighed. Ella then stopped walking and turned back her head to look at William. Me. Are you sure, Mama? Me. William scratched his head, but in the end, he still smiled and caressed Ella's neck. As you wish, Mama. Me. Some of the students formed groups in order to clear the trial together. They knew that the forest was a dangerous place and there was strength in numbers. One of these groups decided to follow the boy with dark brown hair and head along the shortest route towards their destination. Along the way, they also met several spirit beasts, but all of their ranks were quite low. The strongest threat that had barred their way was a dozen giant rats that were known for being territorial creatures. As examinees who dared to enroll at the Royal Academy, and had managed to clear the first trial, these children were no pushovers. After the gruesome battle ended, the group took a break to catch their breath. However, it was also at that moment when they heard several howling sounds in the distance. It seemed that the scent of blood had caught the attention of the wolves that were native to the forest. Forest wolves, a girl cried out as she hurriedly raised her staff. The other children ground their teeth in frustration and rallied to her. She was the elected leader of the group and they promised to listen to her orders. The Wind Mage immediately asked them to initiate their battle formation. This group's lineup was quite impressive. They had a Wind Mage, a cleric, 2 swordsmen, and 2 archers. It was the standard party lineup when clearing out dungeons. Unfortunately, they were not only dealing with 1 or 2 forest wolves, they were dealing with a pack that consisted of 30 individuals. Forest wolves were also Class D creatures, but that only measured their individual strength. They were much more threatening when they fought with their pack. The children resisted with all their might, but soon, they were overpowered by their sheer numbers. The first one to fall was the magician. Although not as smart as humans, the wolves understood who among the group of children had the greatest threat. In order to prevent their sides from suffering losses, the alpha wolf in the party ordered 5 wolves to break through the formation and deal with the mage. And no. Don't kill me, the Wind Mage screamed as a wolf lunged at her. It bared its teeth in the air with the intention of biting the girl's neck until it snapped. At this moment of life and death, the Wind Mage heard the whistling wind. A steel arrow appeared out of nowhere and struck the wolf's neck. The wolf that was about to end the girl's life crashed beside her. It was still alive, but it couldn't move its body. While the mage was still trying to understand what happened, more whistling sounds echoed inside the forest. All the wolves that had aimed to kill the children dropped to the ground with steel arrows sticking out of their necks. The alpha wolf immediately howled and gave the order to retreat. Although the other wolves were reluctant to leave, they had no choice but to obey their leader. Return, a soft voice said as softly as a breeze. All the arrows that had impaled the wolves floated in the air and flew towards a certain direction. William, who was standing on a tree branch, gathered his arrows and climbed down from the tree. They are now safe, Mama, William reported. Me. Ella licked the side of William's face as if praising him for a job well done. After that brief moment of family bonding, William mounted Ella's back and left the scene. His mother asked him to prevent any of the children from dying in the forest. Although it was a tall order, William decided to grant her request. This was the fourth group that they had saved, and they still needed to save more. Ella's sensitivity was higher than William, so she could easily sense where the children were in the forest. As the mother and son pair were busy in preventing the loss of lives in the forest, several hidden presences were eyeing them with interest. Grant, even if this boy fails the test, I'm taking him in. A man with a bow strapped behind his back stared at William as if he was the most beautiful brothel girl that he had seen in his life. It's a shame that he doesn't have a single strand of magic power inside his body, a lady holding a staff sighed. If not for this fact, I would have fought you for him. Ha ha ha. Why are the two of you arguing? A man who was 2 meters tall chastised his comrades. Even if you want him, you still need to wait until he clears the trials. Also, Andy, you are not allowed to use the back door to bring a failed candidate inside the Royal Academy. Rules are rules. Tisk. Andy, the man with the bow on his back, clicked his tongue in annoyance. Grant, can't you make an exception? I really like this boy. No means no, Grant flat out refused. Are you a child? I'm not your mother so I won't spoil you. Just wait for a while, the main course is about to arrive. I want to see how that brown-haired kid deals with one of the lords of this forest. Lila, that brown-haired boy is a magic swordsman. Andy glanced at his colleague. Why aren't you giving him special attention? Judging by his ability, he is quite decent for a magic swordsman. That's a good catch, don't you think? A good catch. Layla brushed her hair to the side. Are magic swordsmen that good? Oh please, I've had enough of arrogant and pompous nobles who only know how to use their power and influence to bully the pretty commoner girls that couldn't fight back. Ah, don't forget that they also bully other nobles who have a lower rank than them, Andy corrected her. That, too. This is why I hate nobles. Layla snorted. All of them can just roll over and die for all I care. You shouldn't have asked the anti-noble mage for her opinion, Grant commented. As if you don't know that Layla hates noble brats to the bone. Even though Grant said that, he wanted to see just how far the magic swordsman would fare against one of the lords of the forest. Let's go, I want to have front row seats while we watch the show, Grant ordered and the three of them headed towards the magic swordsman, who was about to face off against one of the most intelligent creatures that ruled over the forest. Chapter 123, said West only my perfection. Me. The demonic creature started to move. Me. Can we kill it, Mama? Ella pondered for a while before resolutely shaking her head. Although defeating a monster that had a level B threat was not impossible for the two of them, killing it was another matter. If Ella's war ibex form were to be graded, she would be at the initial stages of Class C. If you add William to the equation, then their combined battle strength could reach up to the peak stage of Class C. Even so, each grade was separated by 10 levels. Ella and William were not confident that they would be able to kill a monster who seemed to be in the middle ranks of Class B. Of course, if William still had his magic powers then it would be a different story. Sadly, he couldn't use his skills that relied on mana right now. Should we go with Plan C? William asked. Me. Understood. Let's go, Mama. Me. Chandler, the brown-haired boy, halted his steps because he felt that something was amiss. He had just entered a clearing when suddenly, all the sounds in the forest disappeared. He could not hear the cry of beasts or the chirping of the birds. Even the subtle sounds of the insects were gone. Chandler summoned his sword and raised his guard. He was trained as a warrior at an early age and he could tell that something was terribly wrong with his current situation. The demonic beast that had been observing Chandler walked across the forest floor with silent steps. As one of the lords of the forest, the creatures were quite familiar with its aura and scent. Because of this, all of them fled for safety, leaving the clearing devoid of all life. With a sinister smile, it decided to take the initiative and attack the brown-haired boy. Its movements were very fast, however, Chandler's heightened senses were able to sense its approach. Boulder crash. Chandler immediately fired a magic boulder in the direction he felt the threat was originating from. It was at that moment when the boy's instincts screamed at him to block an attack from above. Earth Dome. Chandler hurriedly summoned a dome of solid rock to protect him from his assailant. The demonic beast slapped the dome of earth where it exploded into chunks of rocks, revealing the boy that was hiding in its center. Chandler gazed at the demonic beast who had the body of a humanoid, the legs of a horse, and a dog's head with razor-sharp teeth. Its other noticeable feature was the single purple eye on its forehead. Peekaboo, I see you, the demonic beast said with a devilish smile on its feral face. It's been a while since I ate the flesh of a young magic swordsman. Chandler's body uncontrollably shuddered because in that brief exchange, he understood that the beast was several levels more powerful than him. What are you? Chandler asked as he raised the sword in his hand with trembling hands. Me? A connoisseur of human flesh, the demonic beast replied with an amused expression. Now, would you volunteer to let me eat you? Or must I tenderize you first to bring out the flavor of your flesh? Either way is fine with me. Monster. Chandler shrieked as he used the most powerful skill in his arsenal. Boulder assault. A 3-meter boulder appeared over Chandler's head. The boy then pressed his hand over the boulder and launched it towards the demonic beast, who was looking at him with amusement. The demonic beast jumped to the side to avoid the spell. It was not in a hurry to kill Chandler. Instead, it wanted to play with him until the boy fell into despair. The dog-like humanoid had a very sick hobby when dealing with its prey. It would eat its target, one limb at a time, while keeping its victim alive. That way, it would be able to taste the victim's fear, and other negative thoughts. For the demonic creature, these negative feelings were like spices that made his meal more delicious. Only when the target had lost all hope would it deliver its coup de grace, and finish its misery. After using his strongest move, Chandler felt his body became as heavy as lead. The boulder assault was a move that he couldn't use too often because it placed a heavy strain on his body. The dome of earth collapsed as Chandler ran away from the scene. The demonic beast chuckled and decided to enjoy this game of tag with its precious prey. It jumped onto the tree branches while hurling orbs of dark magic at Chandler. Help! Chandler screamed. Anyone? Someone help me! Chandler staggered as one of the orbs hit the back of his leg. He then fell down and rolled across the ground due to momentum. Is that it? The demonic creature teased as it landed a few meters away from Chandler. Let's continue this game of tag. Since I'm in the mood, I'll give you 2 minutes to run away. During that time, I will not move from this location. However, once the time limit is up, I'll hunt you down. Before I forget, which one is your dominant arm? I don't want to accidentally eat it and make this game of cat and mouse boring. See, curse you. Chandler struggled to prop himself from the ground. I am the son of Earl Edgard of Dorincourt. You can't kill me. My family will hunt you down. Oh my, a noble child, the demonic beast licks its lips. It has been a while since I ate a noble. All of you have very delicious taste. It must be due to the noble upbringing. Being able to eat delicious food and enjoy resources to cultivate make your bodies very delectable. I can't wait to have a taste. Why you can't kill me? What do you want? Money. Women. I can give it to you. Just let me go. Money? I don't need your human currency. As for women? Although the flesh of ladies is sublime, it still cannot compare to the nutritious meat from nobles like you. Thanks for your offer, but I'll humbly decline. By the way, you have 1 minute and 30 seconds remaining. Better hurry up and run, little boy. Chandler's teeth rattled as he tried to fight back the fear that was slowly taking hold of his body. Although he wanted to run away, his body couldn't move. It was as if he had been paralyzed by the demonic creature in front of him. What's wrong? You only have 1 minute left, the demonic beast kindly reminded him. If you don't run now, then I'll be having an early lunch. Move. 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 Please move. Chandler screamed internally as he willed his body to run. After forcing himself, his legs finally moved. He then ran with all of his might towards the flag fluttering in the distance. According to his estimate, the flag was only 1,000 meters away. If he could only make it there, then he would be safe. Attaboy, the demonic creature clapped his hand with a smile. Run as fast as you can. The demonic beast stood in place and leisurely counted the time before he started to run after Chandler. It wanted the boy to desperately cling to hope. When the boy thought that he had a chance for survival, that was when the demonic beast would appear and tear one of his limbs off. That way, the enjoyment of his hunt would last a little bit longer. Soon, the grace period that he had given Chandler had passed. It even extended it by 20 seconds to ensure that the boy had a good head start before it ran after him. Time's up, the demonic beast shouted. Ready or not, here I come. The demonic beast was about to continue its game of tag when suddenly it heard the sound of whistling air in the distance. The creature lightly swayed to the side as a steel arrow passed a few inches away from its neck. Several more whistling sounds were heard as half a dozen arrows flew in its direction. The demonic beast moved around as if it was dancing. The arrows harmlessly passed by the side of its body and embedded themselves in the trees that surrounded the clearing. HOH? And who might this little guest be? The demonic beast asked with a grin. You arrived at the perfect time, I was feeling a little bored chasing a cowardly little boy. The new arrival was wearing a hooded robe, but the demonic beast could tell that it was one of the children who had entered the forest not long ago. I do not wish for dominion, but my mama doesn't want the innocent to suffer, the hooded boy said softly. Lord of the forest, Psaglov, would you be so kind as to let all the children go unharmed? The smile on the demonic beast's face faded and was replaced by genuine surprise. You know me, but I don't know who you are. Isn't it rude to call out my name without introducing yourself first? My apologies, Your Excellency. The hooded boy knocked an arrow on his bow before introducing himself. Said West, only my perfection, the hooded boy announced. I am one of the shepherds from Lont, William von Ainsworth. Chapter 124, William vs Psaglov Part 1. A shepherd. Psaglov, one of the rulers of the forest, propped his chin up with his fingers while appraising the boy in front of him. Ironically, I haven't eaten a shepherd in my lifetime. I think that eating you will be more rewarding than eating that cowardly noble boy. William didn't say anything as he aimed his bow at the demonic beast in front of him. He had already used his appraisal skill earlier and managed to learn more about his enemy. Psaglov. Demonic creature. Threat level B, mid. Can be added to the herd. Success rate, 2%. A demonic beast that has a humanoid body with horse legs, and a dog's head. The single eye on its forehead allowed it to see through illusions. This demonic beast can also see perfectly well during the night and in dark places. Contrary to its looks, it has superhuman strength that can crush boulders with a single punch. Excels in speed, cunning, and dark magic. It is weak against holy magic. A/N, you can read its name as Physoglov or Pysoglov. The, mid, that you see in the description of its threat level means that it is in the middle stages of the B rank. Grades of the beasts would be given classifications of low, mid, and high. After the system received an upgrade during the Trial of Courage, it had unlocked another one of its features, herd management. It was one of the secret privileges of the shepherd job class. It allowed William to add herd-type creatures into his own herd to increase its size. Right now, the limit on William's herd size was 50. A/N, dogs and herds go hand in hand. Since Psoglov was a demonic creature with the features of a dog and horse, the system determined that it could be added as a potential member of William's herd. However, after he rose his shepherd job class to the next stage, his herd size would also increase. Once he gained the second form of the shepherd job class, the size of his herd would be increased to 200. Currently, his herd was only comprised of 14 individuals, namely Ella and the goats he had raised in Lont. He wasn't conceited enough to think that he could convince the ruler of the forest to become part of his herd. The most he could do was buy some time to allow the other children to reach the flag as he fought against the demonic beast in front of him. Sorry, I don't taste good, William said. It would be best if you look for bigger and stronger prey. Bigger is not always better, Psoglov replied. Instead of eating beasts, I'm more fond of eating humans, you know? Especially the young, courageous, ones that dare to enter my territory. What a coincidence, I was planning to leave your territory, Your Excellency. How kind of you, but do you think I will allow it? It would be best if we settle this peacefully, Your Excellency, William stated. I am just an examinee trying to enroll at the Royal Academy. It just so happens that the testing area falls under your domain. None of the children that came here were aware that we were trespassing on your territory. You have a way with words, little shepherd, Psoglov clapped his hands. However, do you honestly believe that having your trial in my domain is a coincidence? It's not. Of course not. In order for the Royal Academy to peacefully coexist with us, they have to offer some sacrifices on a yearly basis. And these, little lambs are exactly those sacrifices. William narrowed his eyes. He was half in doubt whether Psoglov was telling the truth or not, but the fact remained that the ruler of the forest was indeed serious in attacking the magic swordsman a while ago. He had watched their exchange from a distance, while waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. Sadly, the demonic beast was not an easy opponent compared to the forest wolves he had fought earlier. Does this mean that the negotiations have failed? William asked. What do you think? Psoglov asked back with a mischievous smile. William didn't reply. Instead, he released his arrow because he could tell that the demonic beast wasn't going to back down. Psoglov sneered as it dodged sideways. Such a simple attack couldn't possibly hit him. However, out of the corner of its eye the demonic beast saw a white blur closing in on it. Psoglov roared as it raised its arms. Ella had circled behind the demonic beast and unleashed her quick attack using William's shot as a distraction. The demonic beast grabbed the war ibex's curved horns and skidded across the ground. Ella might not have been at full strength since she was lacking William's buffs, but the fact still remained that she was a strong beast. Psoglov managed to grab a firm foothold as it stopped Ella's charge. However, it heard the whistling sound of the wind behind its back and immediately released the goat's horns, while jumping to the side. The arrows passed by the sides of the demonic creature and Ella without hitting either of them. Ella took this as an opportunity to use her wild charge and charged towards Psoglov, who was still in mid-air. Dark shield, Psoglov enclosed itself in a shield of darkness as it watched Ella's majestic horns ram against its defenses. The shield withstood the impact. Psoglov used the momentum of the strike to jump backwards and gain some distance from Ella. The mother and son pair didn't relent their attacks, because they knew that the demonic beast was not still using its full strength to fight against them. They wanted to at least injure it before it decided to get serious. The steel arrows harmlessly bounced off the dark shield as Psoglov caught its breath. The sudden sneak attack almost gave it a run for its money. Good. Very good. Psoglov glared at William with its eye. You have caught my interest, little shepherd. Now, it's time for me to get serious. Mama. William shouted as he jumped off the tree. Me. William landed perfectly on Ella's back and the two bolted out of the clearing. They had no intention of fighting the ruler of the forest. They only want to buy some time for the kids to reach their destination. Psoglov stared at the retreating shepherd and sneered. You want to play tag? Psoglov smirked. Playing tag is my specialty. Psoglov ran after William like an arrow released from its bow. It immediately closed the gap by half in a span of a few seconds. It's faster than we thought, Mama, William said as he looked behind him. The snarling demonic creature was closing the distance at a rapid pace. However, William and Ella didn't seem to be too worried. In the worst-case scenario, I'll just summon Stormacaller. But, the several hidden presences that Mama Ella warned me about might be from the academy, William thought. I can't let them discover that I am capable of manipulating lightning magic. James had warned him before that anyone that specialized in lightning magic was treated like a VIP. However, this was only on the surface. The spies of the demon race had already integrated themselves into the humans' territories. Once word got out of William's existence, powerful subordinates of the Demon King would hunt him down. Of course, this was not limited to only the demon race. There were also humans and other races who coveted lightning magic. If William fell into their hands, they might enslave him and make him do terrible things, regardless of his will. Hold it right there, buddy, Grant placed his hand on Andy's shoulder. What do you think you are doing? I won't let that bastard kill the boy, Andy said in a calm manner as he knocked an arrow on his bow. This won't do. Layla shook her head. We have an agreement with the various rulers of the forest. If we break our part of the deal, they will never trust the academy again. You and your clan wouldn't be able to handle that kind of consequence. Andy gritted his teeth in frustration. He had really taken a liking to William and, if possible, he didn't want the boy to die at the hands of the sadistic Psoglov. However, Layla was right. There was a contract between the rulers of the forest and the Royal Academy. If one side broke the agreement, the repercussions would be dire. Relax, we can still do something about it. Grant knew what his friend was feeling. At most, we can just hunt some high-grade beast and offer it in exchange for the boy's life. Andy was about to reluctantly nod his head when he noticed something unbelievable. Grant and Layla also saw the changes and it made them look at William in disbelief. William had unequipped his bow and was now holding a wooden staff in his hand. Ella had made a sudden turn and charged towards the incoming demonic beast. Mama Ella, use rampage. William ordered. The size of Ella's horns doubled in size which made her look more imposing. The sudden change in its enemy's move pattern caught Psoglov by surprise. It had no choice but to activate its dark shield without delay. After the horns and the shield collided, the sound of a mirror breaking into 100 pieces reverberated throughout the forest. Ella's horns had torn Psoglov's defenses apart and were about to ram into its chest. The demonic creature only had enough time to cross its arms over its chest to protect itself from the goat's horns that were as hard as mithril. A loud clap was heard as Psoglov was sent flying by Ella's most powerful attack. William then lowered his body on Ella's back and ordered her to use quick attack to close the distance. Since they couldn't outrun the demonic beast, they had decided to just fight against it. Ella and William still had aces up their sleeves, so they were not afraid of a confrontation. This sudden turn of events caught the examiners by surprise. All of them watched with bated breath as the boy, mounted on the goat's back, fought against the ruler of the forest head-on. Chapter 125, William vs Psoglov Part 2. You. Psoglov roared as he tried to move his body, but it was for naught. Ella's skill, Rampage, had a chance to inflict short-term paralysis when she hit her target with her attack. The demonic creature could only curse internally as the goat's horns collided with his arms for the second time. A resounding crack was heard and Psoglov felt a crushing pain in his left arm. The pain broke the paralysis effect on his body and he was able to use his darkness power to push back the second attack of the war ibex who was going for the kill. We almost got him. William sighed as Ella regained her footing. His eyes focused on the demonic creature in front of him who was no longer acting like a gentleman. Psoglov's single eye glared at William with extreme hate. The demonic creature's left arm was bent at an unnatural angle and was bleeding profusely. Psoglov used his right arm to forcefully fix the dislocated arm. He then used his dark magic to stop the bleeding. William knew that the ruler of the forest merely did some emergency first aid treatment on its broken arm. Dark magic was different from light and life magic which had the power to heal injuries. Dark magic, on the other hand, specialized in dealing curses and dark energy on the enemy. Of course, just like other forms of magic, it could also be used as a stopgap to prevent injuries from getting worse. Congratulations! You have succeeded in angering me. Psoglov roared. Its roar sent shockwaves through the whole forest. Spirit beasts and birds started to flee in the opposite direction in order to not be included in the aftermath of Psoglov's full-powered counterattack. You're welcome, William teased. Don't worry, it won't be the first and last injury that you will receive, Your Excellency. If it's a fight you want then it's a fight you'll get. Me? Ella bleated as she raised her head in challenge. What a naive young shepherd you are, Psoglov sneered. I'll teach you the true power of dark magic. William wanted to retort that Psoglov didn't need to teach him anything. His master, Selene, had already taught him a lot while tormenting him with curses and dark miasma every day. Of course, he had no intention of saying this. Using your aces in a battle of life and death could turn the tide of victory. Psoglov raised its dominant right arm and fired a barrage of dark beams towards William and Ella. The Angorian goat nimbly dodged to the side as it started to charge towards Psoglov in order to close the distance. After that overbearing clash, Psoglov didn't dare to underestimate the war ibex any longer. It used its nimbleness to jump to the branches of the trees while hurling dark obs at the young shepherd and his goat. William and Ella ran around the clearing as they dodged the demonic creature's range attack. Too bad I can't use my magic, William thought as he leaned his head to the side to avoid Psoglov's energy balls. If I could use it, I would just erect ice walls and fight a battle of attrition. Doppelganger. Psoglov used its special move and split its body into two. Since he lost one of his arms, he was unable to effectively fire a barrage of dark magic on William and Ella. In order to overcome this weakness, he was forced to use his trump card. As the dark magic raining down on them doubled, William decided that staying in the clearing was disadvantageous to them. Mama, to the forest. Me. Ella used her agility to deftly use the trees to block Psoglov's attack. This move was quite effective because Psoglov was forced to stop its barrage and run after them. The examiners who had been watching over the other children got attracted to the intense fluctuations happening inside the forest and proceeded to investigate as well. Most of the children had already arrived at their destination. Chandler was among them and he was quite thankful that he managed to escape the demonic beast's pursuit alive. Meanwhile, the one who helped the children escape was having a tough battle with one of the rulers of the forest. Psoglov was very familiar with the forest and used it to its advantage. The demonic creature along with its doppelganger aimed for a pincer attack as they circled around the retreating goat. William and Ella had repeatedly tried to run towards the flag fluttering in the distance, but the enraged Psoglov didn't give them that opportunity. Every time Ella would attempt to break through, the doppelganger and Psoglov would rain powerful dark magic attacks on them. This caused Ella to stop her attempts as she desperately dodged each and every attack coming from the trees above them. William knew that the situation was critical, so he decided to use one of his trump cards in battle. System, switch my subclass to Cavalier. Switching of subclasses complete. Host, may the odds be in your favor. Thank you, but I need another favor from you, System. How may I be of assistance? I want you to. William urged Ella to make a turn as she dodged a dozen dark bullets that were shot at her right side. Mama, use Rampage again. William ordered. Me. Rampage 10/10. 100 mana points. Release all your potential and go on a full rampage. Doubles the size of the user's horn to inflict massive damage to the enemy. Damage dealt is equivalent to strength stat x15. Deals double damage against creatures that fall under the pack category. Has a high chance to cause bleeding status to the enemy. Has a chance to paralyze the enemy. The size of Ella's horns doubled, which almost made Psoglov shudder. He could still remember how close he was to dying after receiving the War Ibex's full-powered attack. Dual X. William shouted and an unbelievable thing happened. Psoglov, who was standing on top of a tree, felt his body move unconsciously. It only had a moment to realize that the boy had used some kind of powerful taunt skill to forcefully force him to exchange blows in close combat. Damn! Psoglov cursed out loud as it formed a bastard sword with its dark magic. William's Dual X skill was a specialty of the Cavalier job class. Once William identified a target within a 50-meter radius around him, that target would be forced to exchange a single blow with him. The effect of the duel would immediately disappear once the single strike had been made. William could use the skill 3 times a day, and the good part about this skill was that it didn't require mana to activate. Finding the true body of Psoglov was hard because its doppelganger was a perfect replica of it. However, William had the system. It was able to distinguish which was real between the two. With its help, the red-headed boy could force Psoglov to exchange blows with them as long as it was within the duel's range. A resounding clap, followed by a shockwave, exploded inside the forest. Kaheaok. Psoglov spurted a mouthful of blood as it used a dark whip to grab onto a tree branch to pull itself up. William and Ella were pushed back by the impact of the bastard sword made of pure dark energy. However, both were very much unharmed since Ella's horns took the brunt of the blow. The dark sword had shattered upon impact, but it managed to deflect Ella's horns from landing a fatal blow. Even so, Ella was still able to gouge a hole in the demonic creature's shoulder because it was completely caught off guard by William's forced duel. William summoned his bow as he fired several shots at the demonic creature who had been seriously injured by their exchange. Curse you, human boy! Psoglov shouted in anger. I'll kill you and feast on your flesh. I'll drink your blood and make your skull my personal wine cup. William didn't reply because he was waiting for the Dual X's cooldown to finish. Although it didn't require any mana, he could only use it once every 5 minutes. The examiners who had arrived at the scene were dumbfounded at the exchange that they had witnessed with their own eyes. Aside from Grant, Andy, and Layla, there were 9 other examiners who were keeping a close watch on the children. All of the children had successfully arrived at the flag, except for one, and that one was none other than William. Psoglov's doppelganger initiated a sneak attack and slashed William with a bastard sword made from dark magic. William was about to block the attack when he sensed another killing intent above him. The 2 demonic creatures had decided to go all out and fight at close quarters. Their perfectly timed attack made it difficult for Ella and William to dodge them. William roared and used his staff to block the attack coming from above while leaning sideways. Psoglov's bastard sword was perfectly blocked because the parry skill activated at the crucial moment. However, the doppelganger's attack grazed the side of William's body. Ella immediately used a mega kick to obliterate the enemy behind her, but the latter managed to block it with its bastard sword. Even so, it still sent the doppelganger smashing towards the trees because Ella's kick was a force to be reckoned with. Psoglov immediately used another dark whip to escape Ella's murderous horns as she defended her baby from further attacks. The side of William's clothes were already dyed in blood as his blood gushed out of his wound. Although the bastard sword just grazed him, it still left a centimeter-deep wound that extended along the side of his body. Chapter 126, William vs Psoglov Part 3. Don't worry, Mama. I'm fine, William said through gritted teeth as he pressed his hand against his side to put pressure on the wound. He was about to take a potion from his storage ring to help close his wound when he felt another bout of killing intent from his left and right side. Clearly, Psoglov was well versed in fighting humans. It knew that humans often carried healing potions with them. The demonic creature had no intention of letting William treat his wound and pressed on with its attacks. Ella bleated in fury as it charged at the demonic creature in front of her. William firmly gripped the wooden staff in his hand, while pressing down on his wound. He couldn't afford to lose his concentration at this point in time. One mistake and it would be over for them. The union of man and beast skill from the Cavalier job class allowed William to remain seated on Ella's back even though he wasn't using any reins or holding onto her body. This gave him the freedom to use both his hands to battle while riding on her back. Ella clashed against the doppelganger and sent it flying into the air. Psoglov, on the other hand, used a darkness whip to wrap around William's body. It then tried to pull William off Ella's back, but the skill of the Cavalier class prevented the demonic creature from dismounting him. The only time this skill would be broken was when either the rider or the mount died. As long as both of them drew breath, none could separate them. Since its plan didn't work, the demonic creature jumped into a tree and used a tree branch to hoist William's body by force. William screamed as he felt his body being stretched to the limit. The wound on his side worsened and blood once again drenched his clothes. Hearing her baby cry in pain, Ella opened her mouth and used her one and only ranged skill Benevolent Burst. Benevolent Burst fires a concentrated ball of energy towards the enemy. Damage dealt is equivalent to Intelligence x3. Deals double damage against undead, specters, and dark-type creatures. The energy ball the size of a basketball ball obliterated the tree branch and the dark whip that bound William's body. Ella fired 2 more shots. The first shot destroyed the tree, while the second hit Psoglov squarely in the chest, sending him slamming towards several trees while howling in pain. William spat a mouthful of blood after he was released from his torment. The searing pain in his upper body would have driven any normal 14-year-old to their knees, but William was no ordinary boy. He gritted his teeth as he ordered Ella to charge forward. Me. Ella initiated her wild charge as it attempted to murder the creature who dared to hurt William. However, Psoglov and his doppelganger already had a plan in mind. Both demonic creatures shot out red beams of light from the single eye in their foreheads, while their hands conjured 2 void arrows. The first beam of light landed on Ella causing her to stop her charge, the second one landed on William's back causing the boy's body to lurch forward. Me. 2 screams of madness reverberated in the forest as the confused rays hit their target. William and Ella entered a berserk state due to their enemy's curse. The 2 void arrows also hit their designated targets. Dark mist oozed out of William's eye as his world plunged into darkness. Ella, on the other hand, was able to resist the blind spell, but it wouldn't change the fact that she was still in a berserk state. Ella attempted to dismount William from her back as the berserk spell overwhelmed her rationality. The boy, on the other hand, swayed dangerously back and forth on her back, but the skill union of man and beast prevented him from being tossed away. Psoglov howled in fury as it lunged forward for the kill. Its eyes had locked on William's neck as it raised its bastard sword high up in the air. Andy wasn't able to endure any longer and he jumped forward to assist the boy. However, a gust of wind pushed him back as a winged lion blocked his path. "Human, we have an agreement," the winged lion said with a sneer. "Are you planning to break it? F***ck your mother." Andy cursed out loud. The winged lion ignored him and looked at Grant. Since he was the leader of the examiners, the winged lion gave him the "do your job properly or else" glare. Grant had no choice but to knock Andy unconscious to prevent him from breaking the agreement. Both sides didn't want to escalate the issue and watched as the final clash between the two was about to draw to a close. When Psoglov was only 10 meters away from William, Ella's horns suddenly doubled in size. The war ibex locked her bloodshot eyes on the demonic creature and gave a deafening war cry as it charged forward. Damn! Psoglov was about to use his darkness whip to escape when a voice, that was filled with determination, reached his ears. Dual Axe. William, who was supposed to be under the berserk and blind spells, sneered. As a disciple of a dark sorceress, it would be very shameful if he allowed himself to be affected by curses. Yes, the spells did indeed take effect. But, Celine had already taught William how to use these curses to his advantage. It was also a very effective way to trick the enemy into thinking that they had succeeded. Naturally, this was a gamble. However, this was a gamble that they had won. Due to Ella entering a berserk state, all of her stats were multiplied by 3. This was a boon to Ella who was unable to receive William's buffs. Ella had learned how to harness this overwhelming power while under the effects of the berserk spell. Everything she did earlier was just an act. Now, Psoglov was facing Ella's rampage. It was her most powerful skill that brought out every bit of her power in a single strike. Now, that same full-powered attack was now multiplied by 3. It was more than enough to send the demonic creature to the afterlife. Die! William roared as he raised his staff to block the doppelganger's attack behind him. Ella's horns were about to pierce through Psoglov's chest and end its life when an overwhelming presence grabbed Psoglov and threw him to the side. A giant hand then pressed down on Ella, holding her charge at bay, but it didn't make any move to hurt her. William's eyes widened in shock as he looked up on the monstrous creature in front of him. It seemed to be a giant ape with 2 protruding horns on its head. It also had a tail, but this tail was a serpent who looked down on William as if wanting to take a bite of him. What's the meaning of this? Grant roared as he dropped down from the sky. I thought we had an agreement. The creature scoffed and removed its hand from Ella's horns. William gulped his saliva as he used his appraisal skill to identify this creature in front of him. Diabolical Hell Ape. Underworld creature. Threat level, SS, high. Millennial beast. Cannot be added to the herd. This creature was born from the underworld and it has reached its rank through constant battles. According to legend, the diabolical Hell Ape was a creature that could crush mountains with a single punch. The strength it possesses is stronger than its counterpart the Orobro, Golden Ape. Another major difference between the two was that the diabolical Hell Ape focuses on offense, unlike the Orobro that is an all-rounder. The horns on its head are able to generate the fires of hell which can then be used to coat its body in flames, making it a very tough opponent to fight in close combat. Its tail, that has earned the moniker Inferno Serpent, can spit out fire blasts, and poison sprays, that are capable of incinerating a level A creature with a single strike. This creature has no known weakness. As if feeling William's stare, the diabolical Hell Ape glanced at the boy which sent shivers down William's spine. A few seconds later, its eyes glowed like burning embers that lasted only for a brief moment. William's body swayed as he lost consciousness. Ella, too, had been affected by the diabolical ape's eyes and was about to fall to the side when the giant's hand prevented her from falling completely. Grant rushed out to take hold of the boy mounted on the war ibex's back, so that he wouldn't be crushed by his own mount as it fell. Surprisingly, after both William and Ella were knocked unconscious, the skill union of man and beast also lost its effect. I demand an explanation, Grant said as he passed the unconscious William over to Layla. Why did you interfere? The ape gently supported Ella's body as it laid her sideways on the forest floor. It gave William a sidelong glance before looking at the leader of the examiners. Since we were the first ones to break the agreement, I will personally give the boy compensation, the diabolical hell ape replied using telepathy. It made sure that its answer was heard by everyone, men and beast alike. It was the true sovereign of the forest, and all the rulers were his subordinates. It would not allow any of them to die. This was its duty as the guardian. Even the principal of the Royal Academy had no choice but to give it face in order to prevent full-blown hostilities from happening. This matter ends here. The diabolical hell ape made a gesture and the other rulers of the forest returned to their territories. It then grabbed the seriously injured Psoglov before walking into the depths of the forest. Grant stood there, gnashing his teeth as he watched the sovereign of the forest leave. He would like to nag at it for a while to vent out his frustrations, but the creature paid him no mind. What do we do now? Layla asked. The third trial is about to start, but I doubt that this boy will be in any condition to participate in it. Grant pondered for a while before giving his order. The other examiners, return to your duties and conduct the third trial, Grant ordered. As for this boy, I will let the Dean of the Royal Academy decide his fate. Chapter 127, Did I fail? What Grant and the other examiners didn't know was that inside the Dean's office, two men sat side by side, while looking at a viewing crystal in front of them. Both of them had witnessed the battle between William and Psoglov. Although this battle didn't mean much to men of their level, they still weren't able to stop themselves from being impressed with how things ended. So, what do you think, Headmaster? I think it would be a shame for the Royal Academy to fail such an interesting boy. It's not every day that a 14-year-old can hold his ground against one of the rulers of the forest and live to tell the tale. The man wearing simple clothes stood up from his seat and walked towards the door. Keep an eye on him for me, will you? As you wish, Your Majesty. The Dean briefly nodded his head in acknowledgement. After the man left the room, a dozen guards appeared out of nowhere and flanked the man on both sides. The man kept on walking as he remembered the words that EST had said a few years ago. Father, I would have failed the trial if I didn't receive the help of a boy whom I met on my journey towards the temple, EST said with a gentle smile. His name is William, William von Ainsworth. What kind of boy is he? The man asked as he listened to EST's explanation. Narcissistic, but kind, EST replied. A very mysterious boy who saved my life twice. Once from the mountain troll, the second from the Cyclops. We wouldn't have received the blessing of Lady Astrid if not for his sacrifice. Sounds like an interesting boy. The man chuckled. I'll think of an appropriate reward when I meet him. For now, maintain your connection with him, do you understand? Yes, father. The man left the academy through the secret passageway that was meant for people of his rank. A middle-aged man wearing butler's clothes bowed and welcomed him with a smile as his master exited the passageway. The butler then guided the man towards a simple carriage. No words were spoken between them because the butler already understood where the man wanted to go. As the man climbed into the carriage, the guards accompanying him dispersed. They didn't go away. Instead, they guarded the man from the shadows. As the man propped his head by the carriage window, he remembered William's unwavering determination. He also saw how the boy helped the other children pass the second trial, while maintaining his secrecy. That alone made the man understand that William wasn't aiming for any kind of praise or recognition. He just did what he wanted to do then left, as if he was just a stranger passing by. What an interesting fellow, the man thought as he looked at the scenery outside the carriage. You've met someone quite capable, EST. When William opened his eyes he found himself in an unfamiliar place. He was no longer inside the forest, but lying on a comfortable bed in a room that smelled of roses. His hand unconsciously moved towards his waist where he received the wound from Psoglov. He could no longer feel any pain in that area, which meant that his wound had been healed. William heaved a sigh of relief as he propped himself up from the bed. The sky outside the window was already dark, signifying that night had come. What happened during the trial? Did I fail? William frowned because he couldn't remember anything that followed after he stared at the diabolic hell ape. It was then when William remembered something very important. Wait, where is Mama? William scanned the room and didn't see his beloved mother. He was about to stand up and go towards the door when it opened on its own. You're finally awake. EST said with a smile. I thought that you would remain unconscious for a few days. It seems that the healers of the Royal Academy are quite competent. EST. Where is Mama Ella? William stared at the familiar boy in front of him. Where did the academy take her? Relax, EST replied as he moved towards his bed. Ella woke up 2 hours ago. Ian is watching over her at the academy's stable. She has already healed from her injuries and, from what I could tell by her actions, she was very worried about you. EST stared at the red-headed boy who seemed to have regained his calm. He felt quite envious because the first question he asked was the whereabouts of his mama goat, instead of asking why he was there. That's good to hear, please, take me to her, William pleaded. Mama will continue to feel anxious if she doesn't see me as soon as possible. Is Ella the one feeling anxious, or is it you who is feeling anxious? It's me feeling anxious. EST sighed. Fine, come with me. I'll take you to the stables. Thank you, EST. William smiled. His smile was so bright that it made EST's heart skip a beat. In order to hide his embarrassment, he walked straight toward the door without looking back. William hurriedly followed behind him. The two walked in a vast hallway without speaking a word to each other. 10 minutes later, they arrived at their destination. William immediately sensed his mama's presence and the latter sensed him as well. Ella bolted up from where she laid and ran towards William. William laughed as he, too, ran with open arms. The red-headed boy wrapped his arms around Ella's neck as he kissed the side of her face. Ella returned her baby's affection by licking the side of his face as well. Ian and Isaac watched this touching reunion with smiles on their faces. The three knew that William and Ella were close, but none of them knew the extent of how much William and Ella cared for each other. 5 minutes had passed and the two were still locked in each other's embrace. EST had no choice but to clear his throat to get William's attention. You look so carefree and yet you don't know whether you failed the enrollment exams or not, EST teased. Ah. William turned his head to look at EST. Did I fail? What do you think? EST raised an eyebrow. I think you will give me an answer if I say please. William scratched his head out of embarrassment. Well, congratulations. You didn't fail, EST answered. However, before William could feel relieved, EST added another sentence. But, you didn't pass either. William frowned. How can it be that I didn't fail, yet didn't pass at the same time? EST stared at William with admiration. Although he had briefly heard about what happened from one of the examiners, he still couldn't believe that William was able to go head-to-head with a ruler of the forest that specialized in dark magic. Your case is a bit special, so the Academy decided to give you one last chance to pass the enrollment exams, EST continued his explanation. After all, the other examinees might think that the Academy is showing favoritism if you pass just like that. Well, I guess you have a point. William nodded his head in agreement. So, do you have any idea about what kind of test I will be participating in? Sorry, but I don't, EST replied. You will know when morning comes. I have already informed the head examiner that you have woken up. He will be the one handling your trial. William hummed as he caressed his mama's neck. Are you worried about your test tomorrow? Not really. You're quite confident. Ian snorted. You think that passing the test of the Royal Academy is easy? William gave Ian a sidelong glance before giving him a refreshing smile. By myself, I am not confident. However, since my mama is with me, everything will be deja vu. A/N, to those who don't know Japanese, William said that everything will be fine. Daijobu-letten? Ian asked. What does that mean? It means that a snot-nosed pansy like you needs to see a physician, William sneered. Something might be wrong with your brain. Contrary to William's expectations, Ian didn't get angry. Instead, he looked at him with a mischievous smile which made William feel that something was wrong. Ah, I forgot to tell you. Ian will be the one to decide whether you fail or not in your test tomorrow. EST smirked. What? This no-good-looking boy that is approaching my level of handsomeness will be tomorrow's judge. William almost bit his tongue after he forced himself to praise Ian. Ahem, such a gentleman who is proficient with both the sword and the pen is truly suited to become a judge. I can already see all the girls in the academy screaming his name whenever he goes to his classroom. William's liver started to itch with every word of praise he sang for Ian. The three boys looked at him with amusement as William tried to flatter his mortal enemy. See you tomorrow, Ian winked as he left the stables. He was doing his best to hold back the laughter that was bubbling up inside his chest. William's reaction was priceless. Not good, I can't wait to see his reaction tomorrow when he discovers, Ian chuckled as he walked towards his room in a good mood. He was looking forward to seeing what kind of face William would be making when morning came. Chapter 128, You tricked me. I am too lazy to eat. Feed me. Yes, sir. My shoulders are feeling stiff. No problem. I'm very good at giving shoulder massages. William massaged Ian's shoulder after they had eaten breakfast. Ian had a satisfied expression on his face, while EST was feeling envious. Isaac was doing his best to stop himself from laughing. Clearly, his twin was taking advantage of William's current situation. How is it? William asked with a refreshing smile. Not bad, Ian replied. You're quite skilled. How did you learn to give massages? It's because my master would ask me to give her a massage before she went to sleep from time to time, William answered. At least, once a month, she would also ask me to give her a full-body massage. Ian turned to look back at him with a frown. A full-body massage? Yes. With her clothes on. Are you an idiot? Ahem. William forcefully coughed in order to prevent himself from calling Ian an idiot. Answering Sir's question, of course without any clothes. It would be very hard to give someone a full-body massage if they are wearing clothes. EST and Ian exchanged a glance before glaring at William. Why do you need to give her a full-body massage? Ian questioned. Isn't it enough to give her a shoulder massage? EST also joined the interrogation and threw a few questions of his own. Did she force you to give her a massage by using the slave collar? Their penetrating stares locked onto William. It was as if he was a pig that was about to be slaughtered if he didn't give the right answer. Why can't I give her a full-body massage? William asked back in confusion. She's my master, so it's only natural that I make her happy. Also, I wasn't forced. I did it voluntarily when I saw that she was looking exhausted. Are you just dumb or acting dumb? Ian scoffed. How can a boy like you give a full body massage to a beautiful woman as if it was nothing? Ah, you're talking about that. William nodded his head in understanding. First of all, when I give master a full body massage, she would order me to put on a special eye mask. While wearing that special eye mask, I would only see a skeleton instead of a person's body. But you're still touching her body directly. EST pointed out with an edge to his voice. Don't tell me that you don't feel anything when touching a beautiful woman's body. Ah, about that. It's really a shame that she strips me of my sense of touch when I give her a massage. William sighed. Although I am touching her body directly, I can only feel that I am touching a metallic surface. Seeing William's expression of loss, EST and Ian felt a bit better. Even so, they were still feeling envious of Celine's relationship with William. How about you give me a full body massage later? Ian stuttered. While you're at it, you can also give my young master a full body massage. Sorry, I have no interest in giving body massages to anyone aside from my master, William replied in a heartbeat. Tisk. Tisk. EST and Ian clicked their tongue when they heard William's firm answer. Ah, sir, isn't it about time for the trial to start? William smiled as he lightly patted Ian's shoulder. Oh, you're right, Ian looked at the clock on the wall. Let's go to the training grounds. Instructor Grant might already be there. William happily followed behind Ian as they walked towards the training grounds. EST and Isaac shared a knowing smile and was looking forward to William's reaction once he knew the truth. So, you're finally here, Grant said as soon as William and his entourage entered the training ground. Your name is William, right? Yes, sir. William stood straight as he looked at the imposing man in front of him. Grant wasn't alone. There were 11 more people standing behind him. All of them were looking at William with interest. Very well, we will conduct the test, Grant stated as he motioned for William to come closer. Do you see that stone platform over there? Place both of your hands over the round stone. It is a magic tool to measure your aptitude. Understood. William replied and walked towards the platform. He then obediently placed both of his hands on the magic tool and waited in anticipation. Rows of magic words appeared in the air as William's information was shown to everyone in the training field. Name, William von Ainsworth. Race, half-elf. Age, 14. Magic power, none. Spiritual power, none. Physical fitness, A. Potential, A. Assessment overview, excellent physical prowess, but no magic power. Recommended to be placed under the martial class division. William looked at the information above him and sighed. He didn't know if he should be happy or not because his magic was unusable at this point in time. As for spirit power, this was the first time he had heard of it. I'd better ask the system about spiritual power later, William thought as he removed his hands from the appraisal stone. I was hoping that I made a mistake in my assessment, but the results showed that my hunch was correct. Layla sighed. She was hoping that William had some affinity with magic, but the appraisal stone had already confirmed her initial probe on the red-headed boy. Andy, on the other hand, was all smiles. He was looking at William as if he couldn't wait to drag him to his side and personally cultivate him to become a powerful archer. The other professors had mixed emotions as well. Some of them sighed, while some had smiles on their faces. They were the representatives of the first-year martial class, spirit class, and the magic class of the Royal Academy. William had been a candidate that they had set their eyes on after his stellar performance in the battle against the ruler of the forest. Grant patted William's shoulder with a smile. From now on, you will be a first year in the martial class division. Classes will start a week from now. Make sure to fill out the form in the registration office, so that you will receive the Academy's uniform. Your lodging will be located in the Solaris dormitory. This is the lodging for all the first years of the martial class. Also, do you intend to become the head prefect of the Solaris dormitory? Head prefect? William inquired. What is that? Grant nodded his head in understanding. It was impossible for William to know how the hierarchy works inside the Royal Academy since he just became a first year. Although we call it head prefect, it's more like the commander of all the first years belonging to the martial class, Grant replied. Every year, the competition for that position is very intense. Being the commander of a division is a prestigious honor to any student in the Royal Academy. Sounds troublesome. William sighed. Can I pass? Of course you can. However, the head prefect's orders are absolute within the division. You have to obey them whether you like it or not. What a pain. William didn't mind taking orders from the head prefect as long as it doesn't break his bottom line. However, he had complicated feelings about taking orders from a stranger whom he barely knew. Welcome to the Royal Academy. Grant chuckled as he patted William's shoulders. I have high hopes for you. After saying those words, Grant and the rest of the instructors left the training field. William felt very happy because he had been accepted inside the Royal Academy. However, he had a feeling that he was forgetting something important. William propped his chin with his fingers as he pondered that fleeting feeling inside his head. His gaze then landed on EST, then on Isaac, and finally on Ian, who was looking at him with a smug expression. Ah! William exclaimed. He finally realized that he had been tricked. Ian laughed out loud and ran away. Since William had already realized that they had worked together to trick him, he was sure that the shepherd would retaliate because he was treated like a personal maid. You! William roared as he ran after Ian. You tricked me. I did, so what of it? Ian chuckled as he kept his pace. I didn't know that you were so gullible. Damn you. Don't let me catch you. Don't worry, someone as slow as you wouldn't be able to catch me. EST and Isaac watched the enraged William, who had gone all out to flatter Ian so that he would pass the test, continue to chase Ian around. The shepherd was so angry that his face had completely turned beet red. Ian on the other hand circled around the training ground with a smile. He even shot a few sprays of water magic to cool the enraged red-headed boy down. Soon, William was drenched from head to toe. The boy finally understood that he had no chance of catching the trickster who tricked him. This is not over, William gave Ian the middle finger. Just you wait. I'll pay you back tenfold. After making his threat known, William left the training room while gnashing his teeth. Ian watched him go with his arms crossed over his chest. Maybe we went too far with our joke, Isaac whispered to EST. The deed is already done. EST sighed. It's no use crying over spilt milk. What if William blames us as well? Isaac inquired. We can be considered accomplices. EST's eyes widened in surprise. He had completely forgotten that William was the type that kept grudges. Chapter 129, The Lance That Shines to the Ends of the World. After filling out his registration form, William officially became a student in the Royal Academy. The staff gave him his uniform as well as the key to his dormitory room. Of course, the dormitory room in the Royal Academy was shared by 2 people. This meant that William had a roommate whom he would be spending time with for a whole school year. Right after getting his key, William had locked himself inside his room in the Solaris dormitory. EST, Ian, and Isaac weren't able to see him because they lived in a different dormitory belonging to the magic division. EST was still worried that William would hate him because he had chosen to become Ian's accomplice in tricking him. The young master was feeling down and even Ian, who had a smug expression a few hours ago, looked at him anxiously. If there is a need to apologize then I will apologize to him, Ian said after thinking things through. Knowing William, he won't really hate the young master. At most, he will just hate me and think of a way to make me suffer for the things I did to him. EST sighed and nodded his head. He knew that he couldn't do anything right now. He intended to give William some time to cool down before going to find him so he could give him a proper apology. What EST didn't know was that William wasn't thinking of them at all at the moment. He was busy checking the god shop inside his system and looking for things to buy with the god points that he had accumulated. The red-headed boy had received a mission to save the merchant group while he was traveling towards the capital of the Hellan kingdom. This act of heroism had given him 500 god points. Also, he acquired 2 hidden quests during the academy's entrance exams. One was to save as many children as possible and help them reach their destination. The points for this mission were calculated by the number of survivors multiplied by 10. All 50 students had survived thanks to William's help, which netted him another 500 god points. The one that gave William a pleasant surprise was the hidden quest: Beat the Ruler of the Forest. Hidden quest. Defeat the Ruler of the Forest. Reward, 1000 god points. This unexpected surprise made William very happy. With 2000 god points in hand, he immediately went to open the god shop to see what interesting things he could buy. Over the past 4 years, he had received god points through the completion of his training and additional points that the system treated as bonus god points for William's performance. All in all, he managed to accumulate 5000 god points. Back then, he jokingly asked the system to give him a recommendation on the first thing that he needed to buy. Naturally, the system complied and the item that appeared in the god shop was something that William wasn't able to pass up. The system had recommended a weapon that cost 50,000 god points and it was none other than Rongomyniad, the lance that shines to the ends of the world. It was the holy lance that belonged to King Arthur according to the legends. However, this particular lance was forged by a god. For some reason, the weapon was also able to bestow the cavalier class on other people, if the right conditions were met, and if William allowed it. Another good feature of the lance was that it was imbued with the holy property. After the fight with the Cyclops, William realized that he was severely lacking in elemental weapons against certain types of creatures. The original cost of this lance was 50,000 god points. However, since William received a special discount coupon from the god shop, he could buy one item with a 90% discount. William could have ignored the system's recommendation, but after seeing the information on the holy lance, the red-headed boy bought it right away. His reason for buying it? Because there was a special class attached to it and it was none other than the cavalier class. The cavalier class gave him the ability to fight side by side with Ella while mounted on her back. Another good feature of this job class was that it didn't rely heavily on mana. Most of the skills in the cavalier class were passive skills, which made William very happy. As for why he didn't use Rongomyniad during the battle against Psoglov, it was due to the many spectators that were watching the battle. Rongomyniad was a weapon forged by a god. It would be stupid to show it off in front of others while William was in a weakened state. Now that he had 2000 god points in his possession, William scrolled through the god shop in search of any items that he could buy with his current funds. It didn't take long for him to realize that there were very few things that he could buy with 2000 god points. Most of the items that William wanted were priced at 10,000 god points at the minimum. In the end, William decided to use his trump card in order to get the best deals in the god shop. System, can you give me any recommendations on what to buy with my current funds? Certainly. Please, wait for a while as I search the god shop for possible items that you might need. Search completed. Here is the list of items that might be useful to the host at this point in time. Elemental arrows forged by the god of the hunt. Holy arrow. An arrow forged by the god of the hunt. Very effective against dark-type creatures. Very effective against evil-type creatures. Very effective against undead-type creatures. 500 god points per arrow. Additional 100 God points for auto maintenance. Additional 400 God points for auto retrieval spell. Total, 1000 God points. Adamantium arrow. An arrow forged by the god of the hunt. Has a strong piercing power that is able to pierce through the scales of dragons. Very effective against dragon-type monsters. Very effective against construct-type creatures like golems and gargoyles. Very effective against armored-type creatures. 500 God points per arrow. Additional 100 God points for auto maintenance. Additional 400 God points for auto retrieval spell. Total, 1000 God points. System, I got to admit that you are good at sucking all my God points dry. Thank you for your praise. Please, leave a 5-star review after you make your purchase. Thank you for your patronage. William sighed and purchased the 2 arrows and added them to his quiver. With this, he would be able to increase the trump cards in his arsenal. Even if he used these 2 arrows in public, no one would think that it was strange. There were plenty of elemental arrows sold in the market and William having a few of them wouldn't make others' eyes go green with greed. The only difference between the elemental arrows sold on the market and William's was that the red-headed boy's arrows were forged by a god. Naturally, their efficiency couldn't be compared to those that were forged by mortals. While William was admiring his 2 arrows, a soft knock was heard on the door. The red-headed boy hurriedly returned his items inside his storage ring and went to answer the door. When William opened the door, he saw a delicate silver-gray-haired boy wearing glasses. He was holding a small backpack on his back and wearing expensive clothing. Hello, is this room 401? The young boy asked in a timid voice. I have just arrived today and the registrar's office told me to go to this room after I finished my registration. Yes, this is indeed room 401, William replied with a smile. Please come in. Thank you. The young boy bowed and entered the room. When William closed the door, he smelled a faint scent of herbs. He didn't think much about it and sat down on his bed while looking at his roommate. William had a feeling that his roommate and him would get along well during their first year inside the Royal Academy. Chapter 130, William's roommate. My name is Kenneth Xin Ashley, the delicate boy with silver grey hair and blue eyes said timidly. The name is William, William replied. William von Ainsworth. Feel free to call me Will. William looked at his new roommate and gave him a thumbs up in his heart. He never thought that his roommate would be this cute. Will, you have a good name, Kenneth said with a smile. Are you also a first year? Yes. William nodded. Why? Do I look old? Kenneth resolutely shook his head. It's just that, you give me a very mature feeling. William scratched his cheek as he looked at his roommate with approval. He was quite happy that his roommate was Kenneth. With just a glance, William could tell that the grey-haired boy was someone that was raised as a noble. Even so, Kenneth didn't have the arrogance like that most nobles did. For some reason, William felt like EST and Kenneth had something in common. Perhaps it was their aura, or presence, but William didn't dislike being together with them. Well then, may you take care of me this school year, Kenneth, William said as he extended his hand for a handshake. Kenneth looked at William's hand before slowly raising his own hand to accept his handshake. The grey-haired boy's countenance changed when his hand touched William's hand. His body instinctively flinched as the rough hand touched his own. Sorry. William apologized as he reluctantly let go of Kenneth's soft hands. Did my hand hurt you? It's pretty rough, right? And no, Kenneth stuttered. I was just surprised. Your hand, although rough, feels sturdy and strong. William chuckled due to Kenneth's timid response. He then explained to his new roommate that he was a shepherd and was used to handling goats and performing manual labor. Also, William's lifestyle in Lant was not easy. Because of this, he had developed calluses on his hands and it made his palms rougher compared to boys his age. When William woke up in the morning, he would chop firewood then cook something for his master, Celine. After that, he would feed the goats before taking a bath. After breakfast, he would go and spar against his grandpa or other people in Lant to become more proficient in the martial arts he had learned from his job classes. Since there were plenty of strong people in Lant, William was able to increase his proficiency and learn a few tricks from them as well. After sparring, he would take a bath and return to Celine's house to prepare her lunch. When afternoon arrived he would spend it with his cute cousin Eve. Once night came, it would be the start of Celine's hellish training of curses, poison, and more curses. A shepherd, Kenneth eyed William curiously. Did you take the entrance test of the Royal Academy? Of course. Was it hard? A little bit. William had no intention of telling Kenneth about his battle with the ruler of the forest. I see, Kenneth replied as his blue eyes appraised William from head to toe. Since he passed the entrance test, he must be quite capable despite how he looks. Being stared at by an angelic-looking boy made William feel like a kitten was scratching his heart. Am I that handsome? Why are you staring at me like that? Yes, Kenneth replied unconsciously. You are very handsome. Kenneth paused as his face became beet red when he realized that he had said his thoughts out loud. The sudden change in his reaction made William grin. Seriously, my roommate is too cute. William thought. I better not tease him too often. I don't want him to hate me. An awkward silence descended upon the room. Kenneth busied himself in arranging the items in his magic bag. He placed several robes in his closet and even took out a pillow for his bed. He then placed an incense burner on the small table beside his bed. A soothing fragrance permeated the room as soon as Kenneth lit the incense burner. This smells good, William praised. This reminds me of the smell of gardenias. It is a scent made from the gardenias of my hometown. Kenneth gave William a sincere and genuine smile. I'm glad you like it. William felt his body become very relaxed as the fragrance assaulted his senses. Before he knew it, he had already laid on the bed and had fallen asleep. Although he had rested properly last night, it seemed that he still hadn't fully recovered from his long journey and his recent battle against Psoglov. Kenneth looked at his roommate who had slept in an awkward sleeping position. With a sigh, he stood up from his bed and supported William's body into a proper sleeping position. As he covered him with a blanket, he heard William's sigh of pleasure. Thank you, William said as if he was talking to someone in his dream. Kenneth gazed at his peaceful sleeping expression for a full minute before returning into his own bed to rest. For some reason, he also felt like sleeping. As he laid in the bed, facing his new roommate, Kenneth felt thankful. He was thankful that his roommate wasn't one of those arrogant nobles whom he hated to the bone. Soon, the silver-gray-haired boy fell asleep as well. A few hours later, both of them were woken up by the resounding tolling of a bell. William drowsily opened his eyes as he looked at the magic clock that hung on the wall of his dormitory room. It was 12 noon, and it also signaled that the time for lunch was at hand. William yawned as he stood up from the bed. He did some stretching to help circulate the blood in his body and remove the drowsiness he was feeling. Kenneth had stood up from his bed as well and watched William with amusement. His impression of William was already good, but seeing him act like this made him like the shepherd even more. After William finished his short stretching exercise, he glanced at his roommate. Do you want to have lunch together? William asked. Yes, Kenneth replied. Do you know where the dining room is? I don't know, William answered with embarrassment. I also just arrived today. However, don't worry. We can just ask around. I'm sure that we will find it sooner or later. You have a point. Kenneth nodded. The two boys left their room, but they didn't forget to lock it. Although they were inside the Solaris dormitory, it would be safer to lock the doors in order to prevent theft. Sure enough, it didn't take long for William and Kenneth to find the location of the dining hall. When they arrived, they immediately noticed 6 long tables that were at least 14 meters in length. Aside from that, there was also one long table, on an elevated platform, placed horizontally facing the students where the instructors of the martial classes ate together. Several dishes had already been placed on top of the tables resembling a feast that was meant to be partaken of by the students of the first-year martial classes. William and Kenneth glanced at each other before picking a less crowded table. They sat near the end, and happily filled their plates with meats, fruits, and other dishes that looked delicious. William had started to eat meat again, but in much smaller quantities. When lunch ended, several adult men and women appeared and cleared the table. One of the instructors had mentioned that there was an important announcement waiting for all of them after lunch. Because of this, none of the students left the dining hall. All of their gazes were focused on a handsome man with short light brown hair and green eyes. A bow was strapped behind his back, so William assumed that he was in one of the advanced classes of the archer profession. Good day, everyone, the man said with a smile. My name is Andy and I am the instructor for the hunter classes. As the school year is only about to begin, you should all know that we need to have officers that will manage the first years. Some of the children nodded their heads in understanding because they had already been briefed by their families about this. Others were looking at Andy with determined expressions because they were aiming for the prestigious position that would bring honor to their name as they advanced into the upper years in the academy. Right, I'm talking about the position of head prefect for the entire freshman class during this school year. Andy grinned as his feral eyes briefly glanced at William before looking at the other expectant faces who were looking at him. Naturally, this position holds considerable power. Since that is the case, only those with power are allowed to wield it, Andy explained with a serious expression. An all-out battle royale will be conducted in the Enchanted Forest 4 days from now. The one who is left standing in the end will become the head prefect and everyone is duty-bound to follow his orders. Do I make myself clear? Yes, the students replied in unison. Good, may the best man or woman win. Andy raised his fist and all of the students cheered at the same time. The bloody battle for the position of head prefect was about to begin, and William was still on the fence about whether he should participate in it or not. Chapter 131, Who do you think will win? After lunch, William decided to visit the stables to see his mama Ella. Kenneth, on the other hand, had nothing to do since he had already unpacked his belongings in the dormitory room. Since that was the case, he decided to follow William to the stables to meet the red-headed boy's second mother. Me. I missed you too, Mama. Me. William hugged Ella's neck while the latter rested her head on his shoulders. Kenneth was surprised when he saw the scene because he was very sensitive when it came to sensing the feeling of beasts. He could tell from a glance that Ella loved William very much. The same could be said for the boy who was hugging her. Because of this, Kenneth's good impression of William increased inside his heart. For the boy to show so much love and care towards an ordinary goat, made the grey-haired boy think of William as a very good person. Mama, let me introduce you to my new roommate, William said as he reluctantly took a step back from hugging his mama. This is Kenneth, my new roommate. Kenneth, this is my mama Ella. I hope the two of you get along well. Me. Hello, nice to meet you too, Ella. After the two exchanged their greetings, William took Ella out to take a stroll. He didn't ride on her back, so that Kenneth wouldn't feel out of place. Instead, he just walked by her side as they took a tour at the various facilities of the martial class division. Will, are you interested in becoming the head prefect? Kenneth asked while walking beside him. To be honest, I'm not really sure, William replied. I'm the type who doesn't want to take orders from anyone. If the head prefect were to order me to do something that goes below my bottom line, I might not be able to take it and hit him with my wooden staff. Kenneth giggled when he heard William's reply. Frankly, he, too, didn't like to be ordered around by anyone. However, he had a feeling that he really wouldn't mind taking orders from this red-headed boy who had grown up tending goats in the countryside. Well, if you don't want to take orders then you can only do your best to become the head prefect, Kenneth said casually. You still have 3 days to think about it before the competition starts. William nodded his head. How about you? Are you planning to participate? No, Kenneth shook his head. I don't think I'm capable of becoming a head prefect. Let's just say that I get lucky and become the head prefect, do you think the students will listen to me? William turned his head to appraise the delicate boy from head to toe. Although Kenneth wasn't lacking in the good looks factor, he didn't seem the type that would make people follow him. However, if someone were to ask if there would be people willing to protect Kenneth, the answer would certainly be yes. The boy was too cute for his own good. William was certain that even the hearts of the brave girls in the martial classes would feel overprotective of him. Well, a head prefect might be too high of a goal, William agreed. But, being the martial class mascot is not impossible. In fact, the moment I raise this proposal, I'm sure that you will get the landslide victory. Don't you dare do that. Kenneth immediately grabbed William's arm. I hate being surrounded by people. William unconsciously patted Kenneth's head. For some reason, Kenneth reminded him of his cousin, Eve. Although Eve was 1,000 times cuter than Kenneth, the presence that the grey-haired boy emitted was similar to the adorable girl back in Lont. Fine. William chuckled. However, I'm sure the girls will raise this issue by themselves. When that happens, don't come looking for me, do you understand? Kenneth pouted as he let go of William's arm. As long as you're not the one who initiates the proposal then it's good. The two had almost finished their tour in the martial division when they noticed a crowd in front of them. They could faintly hear the sound of a quarrel. As the two drew closer to investigate, they noticed a pair of boys glaring at each other while holding their weapons in their hands. The two boys were standing in what seemed to be one of the battling arenas that were scattered along the premises of the martial class division. Give it up, Drake, a cool-looking boy with blonde hair and blue eyes chided. The one who will become the head prefect will be none other than me. Keep on dreaming, Spencer, a boy with above-average looks snorted in reply. His dark brown hair and hazel eyes looked at the boy in front of him with disdain. As long as I'm around, you can forget about becoming the head prefect. I can't wait to see you bowing your head as you follow my orders. Ha 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 ha. Why wait until the test starts? Let's just decide this, right here, right now. Sounds like a plan. I don't want to waste too much time kicking your ass asterisk when the test officially starts. Both boys readied their weapons and prepared to clash with each other. The crowd got rowdy and started to cheer them on. William observed the two combatants with anticipation. He wanted to know the level of the freshmen that were currently enrolled in the martial class division. Kenneth, too, was looking at the two boys with a serious expression. He was also curious about how strong the students were in the Helan Royal Academy. Excuse me, William patted the shoulder of the tallest boy in the crowd. Can you please tell me the identity of the two combatants? Are you not familiar with them? They're quite popular in the Helan Kingdom, the tall boy replied. Sorry. I came from the countryside, William gave a refreshing smile. This is my first time in the capital. Ah, that explains it. The tall boy nodded in understanding. He then pointed at the two combatants who were busy duking it out against each other in the arena. The cool-looking boy holding the spear is the fourth son of the Duke of the Armstrong Duchy. His name is Spencer Armstrong. The one holding the great sword is the third son of the Duchy of Craig. His name is Drake Six Craig. Both of them are well known among the young generation for their incredible fighting skills. Thank you, William nodded his head in thanks. He then returned his attention to the two combatants who were currently in the midst of battle. Are all sons of dukes this hot-headed? William thought. He could still remember the magic swordsman, Kingsley Rhodes, who had challenged him in Lont 4 years ago. That boy was also a son of a duke and he seemed to be very happy to use his background to throw his weight around. Even so, he had to agree that, like Kingsley, Spencer and Drake had the ability to back up their words. The two were very proficient in their weapons and their attacks could easily blow away those who had abilities weaker than them. Kenneth silently walked beside William and tapped his arm. Who do you think will win? William pondered for a bit as his eyes focused on the two individuals in the arena. Hard to say, but if I were to really choose between the two, I'd choose Spencer. And the reason? Because he has better technique. William had observed the battle for a while now and managed to gauge the battle prowess of both combatants. While Drake had more explosive power than Spencer, the cool-looking boy's technique was very refined. Each block, each thrust, and each swing of the spear was perfect. There were no wasted movements, which greatly impressed William. Of course, if the red-headed boy was going to be perfectly honest, he would simply say that his own technique was 2 to 3 levels above Spencer. After all, he trained with the best fighters in Lont. Even a complete amateur like William would improve during those 4 long years of sparring. Not to mention, the martial arts he had learned in his martial job classes were honed to the very limit. William's war arts with the sword, bow, and hand-to-hand combat were only at the basic level. Even so, we're talking about the basic level of the strongest war arts provided by the system. These basic level war arts could be considered intermediate techniques to the people of his current world. As for the staff and the spear, they were in the intermediate ranks, which set them on par with the expert techniques in William's new world. How did this become possible? It's really simple. When William used the Millennial Grade Beast Core to max out his Disciple of Thunder job class, he immediately ascended it to its advanced class, which was the Prince of Thunder. William pooled all the EXP he could during his dungeon expeditions to help the Prince of Thunder job class reach level 10. That way, he could unlock the Lightning God War Arts, Intermediate, and learn the more advanced moves of this particular war art. Also, let's not forget about his movement technique, which was the Heavenly Phantasm movement technique, basic. After getting his skill points, William pumped them into this movement technique and upgraded it to Heavenly Phantasm, Intermediate. With constant practice, William had made these techniques his own. If he and Kingsley were to fight again, William was confident that he would send the arrogant little prick packing. Of course, this was on the condition that Kingsley wouldn't use magic during their duel. Right now, William's martial skills when using the wooden staff, spear, and lance, were enough to contend with most experts within the silver rank of the martial classes. His movement technique would also allow him to escape most tricky situations. A/N, the rankings for the martial classes are Copper, Bronze, Silver, Gold, Platinum, Mithril, Adamantium, Black, and Saint. After the battle with Kingsley Rhodes, William swore that he would dedicate his time and effort in learning martial skills while he couldn't use his magic powers. Chapter 132, Is Goat Milk Really That Good? The two combatants came to a standstill as they panted for breath. Both sides weren't willing to use their trump cards this early in the game. Although they had used their most standard abilities to the fullest, it wasn't enough to declare a winner between the two of them. Enough, Drake said as he sheathed his blade. We will settle this inside the enchanted forest. At that time, you will not be as lucky as you are now. My words exactly, Spencer replied. I can't wait to see the look on your face when you bow your head in front of me. The two boys snorted at the same time and left the arena. Seeing that the fight was over, the peanut gallery had also started to disperse. William was reluctant to part with Ella, and the latter felt the same way. When Kenneth saw this tear-jerking scene, he decided to clear his throat and offer a solution. You know, as long as both parties sharing the dormitory room agree, then bringing Ella to our room is not a problem, Kenneth stated. Really? William immediately grabbed Kenneth's hand, which made the delicate boy flinch. Oh. Sorry, I forgot that my rough hands can hurt you. However, can I believe your words when you said that Mama Ella can stay in our dormitory room? She can, but you have to take proper care of her, Kenneth replied after regaining his composure. William's action was so quick that he was caught by surprise. Also, make sure to tell her not to go over to my side of the room. I don't want Ella to start munching on my precious herbs. Don't worry, Mama Ella wouldn't do that. William patted his chest in assurance. Isn't that right, Mama? Me. Ella bleated in acknowledgement. Kenneth couldn't help but smile as he watched this exchange between the mother and son pair. When Ella entered the dormitory building, the guard guarding the gate gave her a weird look, but he didn't stop her from entering the Solaris dormitory. Ella walked along the hallway, climbed the stairs, and followed William's back like a tail. The students living in the dormitory looked at this scene with amusement. Since Ella was not in her war ibex form, her height was only a meter tall, and her body length was only over a meter. Also, her coat was so white and fluffy that the girls who saw her were tempted to give her a hug. Of course, they didn't dare do that and only stared at Ella as if she were a walking plush toy. When Ella was safely inside William's room, she obediently went to the side that contained William's bed and stood beside it. William took out a small wooden bowl from his storage ring and crouched beside Ella. He then started to milk her. I haven't had a drink of your milk today, Mama, and it is making me feel uncomfortable, William said as he filled the wooden bowl in his hand. Me? Ella bleated softly as if reprimanding William for not drinking his milk on time. You really are a shepherd. Kenneth looked at the two with interest. I haven't drank goat milk before. I wonder what it tastes like. After filling up his bowl, William thanked his mama before drinking it slowly. Mama, your milk is really the best, William praised as he finished his bowl of milk. Me? Ella bleated as if saying, isn't this a fact? The familiar notification sounded and a row of words appeared on William's screen. Daily quest, drink milk has been completed. Rewards, 6 EXP points. Additional reward, 2 God points. William rubbed his eyes and double-checked the notification. It's really there. William didn't know what kind of sorcery was happening to the notifications, but he would be lying if he said that he wasn't secretly happy for the additional reward from drinking his mama's milk. Somewhere in the Temple of 10,000 Gods. Are you sure about this? Gavin asked. Isn't this too much of a freebie? It's fine, David replied. Even if he drinks milk for a year, at most he would only get 730 God points. This isn't a big deal, especially with you, Issei, and Lily giving him special quests from time to time. So you say, but you were the one that gave the 2 hidden quests last time. Gavin pointed out. Well, since it was proposed by Ella and William decided to listen to her, I decided to add those 2 quests on a whim, David admitted. I don't regret it though. William performed spectacularly in that fight. His 4 years of training hasn't come to naught. Gavin nodded his head as he gazed upon his follower, who was being displayed in a large crystal ball. He wanted William to be safe and happy, but the world he chose was different from the one Gavin had envisioned for him. God points, 2. William opened the God shop and confirmed that he had indeed received God points from drinking his mama Ella's milk. His brain started to calculate the amount of points he could get over the span of a year, and it made him realize that it wasn't that much. It was not even enough to buy an elemental arrow with the necessary add-ons. Even so, I'm still thankful, William muttered. Kenneth heard William's mutter and thought that he was thankful for drinking Ella's milk. Is goat milk really that good? Kenneth's curiosity had been piqued. However, he was too embarrassed to ask William if it was possible for him to have a taste of Ella's milk. 3 days passed swiftly and there was only a day before the battle for the position of head prefect of the freshmen in the martial class. Excitement and determination could be seen on some of the faces of the students who intended to try their luck and win this prestigious position. As for people like Kenneth, who weren't interested in joining the event, they were just waiting patiently for the results. After thinking things through, William decided to join the competition as well. His reason for joining was quite simple. If I become the head prefect then no one will say anything about Mama Ella staying inside the Solaris dormitory. That was what William thought. Although he wasn't too sure if he could win, he would still do his best in order to gain the rights to have Ella stay by his side in the Royal Academy. He didn't want her to spend her days in the stables, while he went to his martial classes. Chapter 133, Enchanted Forest Part 1. That morning after breakfast, the martial class instructors brought everyone to a special building located at the very center of the martial class division. This building was called the House of Heroes. A place that was heavily guarded because it contained the entrances to 4 special domains that belonged exclusively to the martial class division. Domains were small worlds that had their own set of rules and laws. Some of these domains were filled with important resources that were useful in advancing cultivation. Others were used as training grounds to raise expert fighters, and some were used to breed rare creatures and plants that were very hard to encounter in the wilds. One of these domains was the Enchanted Forest. This forest had been used as a training ground for the students. In some cases, it was also used for special events like the choosing of the head prefect that would represent their grade. Right now, William, alongside all the freshmen who chose to participate in the prefect battle, stood in front of a huge copper gate. Are all of you ready? Grant asked. Yes. Remember, only one of you will be chosen, Grant stated. Good luck to all of you. The instructors raised the emblems pinned on their chests and activated the door. The copper gate slowly opened revealing a green portal at its center. All of you will be teleported to random places inside the Enchanted Forest, Andy explained in a carefree manner. This will prevent you from engaging in combat right away. However, remember that you can only stay inside the domain for 3 days. If in 3 days, there are still survivors inside the domain, the person who has eliminated the greatest number of people will become the head prefect. Make no mistake, this is a battle to the death. The only way for you to eliminate someone is to kill them. Don't worry, none of you will really die. Anyone who gets eliminated will be ejected by the domain and transported back to this hall. Are there any more questions? William raised his hand and Andy nodded his head in acknowledgement. What if we kill someone who has killed many people? William inquired. Will we get their points, too? Good question. The answer is that you will only get half of the overall points that they have accumulated, Andy replied. At the end of 3 days, the one with the most points will become the head prefect. Are there any more questions? A skinny boy raised his hand and Andy once again nodded his head to encourage him to ask his question. Are we allowed to form alliances? The skinny boy asked. Is it fine for us to form teams? Of course. Andy nodded his head. This was not the first time this had happened in the prefect selection event and the instructors had already expected this to happen this year as well. Feel free to form teams and alliances. In the end, only one head prefect will be chosen. The reason why the instructors encouraged forming teams was because martial classes worked well when they were in a team. This also helped them form strong bonds, which were beneficial to their growth. Some of the students smiled, while Drake and Spencer snorted in disdain. The two believed that the strong should fight alone and not rely on external help. Only weaklings would gang up together and fight. Because this was an individual battle, the instructors didn't allow Ella to enter the premises. They had already seen her capabilities during the second part of the exam, but what they wanted to see was William's own ability. They wanted to know if this boy, who had fought tooth and nail with the ruler of the forest, was just as impressive without his animal companion. All of you, enter the portal, Grant ordered. May the odds be in your favor. One by one, the students entered the portal. All of them had determined expressions on their faces. William was the last to enter and all eyes were watching his every move. Meanwhile, outside the domain, those who didn't want to participate were gathered just outside the building where several viewing crystals were enshrined. With these crystals, they would be able to watch the battle unfold in real time. Ella and Kenneth were standing in front of one of these viewing crystals. These crystals allowed someone to view all the candidates that had entered the Enchanted Forest. Naturally, it also had the option to allow the viewer to choose only one candidate to spectate. As William entered the portal, his image appeared on the viewing crystal. Ella bleated softly as if to cheer for William and wish him luck. Kenneth, on the other hand, was looking at William with a serious expression. Please show me the extent of your true power, Kenneth thought. I want to know if you are worthy of that person's bloodline. Please, don't disappoint me, William. When William opened his eyes, he found himself inside a lush forest teeming with life. The sounds of birds singing, the roars of beasts, and even the subtle noise of the insects reached his ears. For some reason, it made William feel a little homesick. This place reminded him of the forest near Lont. Although the fauna and flora were different, it still reminded him of home. I wonder how Gramps and the rest are doing. William thought as he immersed himself in the sounds of the forest. Does Eve think of me as well? Suddenly, he heard a very subtle buzz in the air. William chuckled internally as he exaggeratedly jumped backwards. As he did so, he saw 2 arrows flying in his direction. The arrows harmlessly pierced the tree beside William with a thud, which reminded the boy that he was participating in a battle royale and not a field trip. As an archer, who had been trained by 2 experts in Lant, it was very easy for him to lock onto his attacker's position. However, he didn't make any move to charge in that direction. Instead, he circled away and left the area. Although the instructors had said that they would be teleported to random places to prevent immediate combat, it was very different when dealing with archers. They had the ability to attack from great distances, and only those with keen senses would be able to sense their sneak attacks. After gaining sufficient distance from his attacker, William decided to find an elevated place where he could observe his surroundings. However, before he could do that, 2 wild boars came charging towards him from 50 meters away. It seemed that William had unknowingly stumbled into their territory and they had taken it as an act of aggression. William didn't want to fight with the 2 boars, because there might be other students around who might take advantage of the battle. Even though he was not afraid of dealing with them, he didn't want those who were watching him to know his abilities. As William was about to make a run for it, 2 boys appeared in front of him wielding swords and spears. Clearly, they intended to prevent him from escaping. With 2 boars behind his back, and 2 boys blocking his path, William decided to play a trick on the students who thought that he was easy prey. The red-headed boy waited until the 2 wild boars were only a few meters behind him before he activated his movement technique, Heavenly Phantasm. William easily passed through the 2 boys like a phantom and escaped. Before the 2 boys could even react, the wild boars were already in front of them. Since the 2 boars had lost their original target, they shifted their attention on the 2 boys that were wielding weapons in their territory. Chapter 134, Enchanted Forest Part 2. Faced with the sudden change in their circumstances, the 2 boys remained calm and engaged the wild boars in battle. They wanted to end it as soon as they could in order to prevent anyone from taking advantage of them. William didn't bother to sneak attack the 2 boys, because he wanted to find a safe place to make his base. He was not in a hurry to collect points, since it was only the first day. What he prioritized first was his safety. When William left the scene, 2 arrows came flying from somewhere in the forest and struck the backs of the 2 boys who were busy dealing with the wild boars. Although they had already heightened their senses, in order to escape being ambushed, the 2 arrows still managed to avoid their detection. The 2 boars didn't miss this opportunity and continued to charge at the 2 wounded boys. The impact of their charge sent the 2 boys rolling across the ground, which aggravated the injuries they had received from the arrow. The archer fired 2 more arrows which landed in the 2 boys' necks, ending their lives and turning them into particles of light. The 2 red orbs that emerged from their bodies flew towards the archer who was hiding 100 meters away from them. After receiving her spoils of war, she left the scene in search of easier prey to kill. If possible, she wanted to eliminate the red-headed boy first, but he was as slippery as an eel. As an archer who took the second exam, she had watched William's battle against Psoglov through a telescope. She was one of the first to arrive at the flag during the second exam, which gave her plenty of opportunities to observe the other candidates. Although she couldn't see the entire battle unfold, she was still able to see how the boy fought fearlessly against the ruler of the forest. Because of this, she had marked William as the greatest threat in this competition instead of Drake and Spencer, and wanted to eliminate him early. Unfortunately, she failed on her first try, and wasn't able to get an opportunity on her second. In the end, she decided to just hunt the small fries and farm points until it passed the 100th mark. After that, she would hide somewhere inside the forest and wait for the competition to end. William encountered several more students as he continued to look for a place to hide. He avoided them like a plague and refused to engage in battle. Earlier, he had climbed a tree and surveyed the terrain. The forest extended for miles in all directions. All that William could see was a sea of trees without end in sight. This is going to be tricky, William thought as he extended his senses. Aside from the candidates who were aiming to become the head prefect, William had sensed some other threats inside the forest as well. Although they were not as powerful as Psoglov, they were in the same league as his mama Ella in her war ibex form. At most, threat level DS and Cs, William rubbed his chin with his fingers. They are scattered quite evenly. I guess they have already established their own territories. After pondering for a while, William decided to ask for a second opinion. System, any recommendations? William inquired. To answer the host's question, I will not participate in this event. That also means that I won't be helping the host in any way aside from changing job classes. Also, I have already disabled the mapping function. Host will not be able to take advantage of seeing his enemies on the map. Why the sudden change? William asked back. What happened to the promised friendship between the protagonist and his system? Host. You must remember. Always depending on external help will not be advantageous to your growth. I believe in the host's power. Compared to the difficulties that you have encountered in the past, this measly test is nothing. I don't know if I should be happy or not, but you do have a point. William sighed. Fine. Please change my subclass to Cavalier class. Understood. Changing of subclass has been completed. Thank you. Good luck. William hurriedly climbed down the tree and headed in a certain direction. With the passive skills of the Shepherd class, he had found a way to use the terrain to his advantage. Wait. Why don't we team up? A skinny boy proposed. You be the boss, and I'll be your underling. It's a win-win for everyone, right? Your offer is good, a cool-looking boy said with a smile. However, what I need right now is your points. Spencer took a step forward and traversed 4 meters in a single step. His spear stabbed forward and a scream of pain reverberated in the forest. Soon, the body of the skinny boy changed into particles of light as a red orb floated in the air. The cool-looking boy grabbed the red orb with his right hand. As soon as he touched it, the orb disappeared and the back of his hand glowed showing the number 12. Contrary to his looks, he was very capable, Spencer thought as his points increased by 4. Now, time to gather more points. Spencer walked towards the depth of the forest where the other candidates hid. He walked with confidence, for he knew that only a handful of people could threaten him in this battle for the title of head prefect. Wash your neck, Drake. Spencer sneered. The next time we meet, I will not hold back. 2 red orbs appeared in front of Drake as he sheathed his greatsword. Bunch of weaklings, Drake spat on the ground. It seems that only that bastard, Spencer, is the only threat in this competition. With a wave of his hand, the 2 orbs flew in his direction. The number 20 appeared on the back of his hand, which proved that he had killed more than Spencer had. The total number of candidates gunning for the position of head prefect was less than 300. It was around 2/3 of the first years in the martial class division. After making his initial estimate, Drake knew that he only had to kill over 100 and the position of head prefect would fall in his hands. Don't let me see you, Spencer, Drake muttered as he set his sights on his new target. I'll make you regret enrolling in the Royal Academy. I see plenty of rough gems in this year's competition, Grant said with a smile. He was looking at Spencer's and Drake's battles and he was very satisfied with their performance. He had also discovered the archer girl who was sniping people from afar. Perhaps we don't need to wait 3 days in order to see who the winner will be. What do you think, Andy? I think those 2 brats are overestimating themselves, Andy replied in a lazy manner. As for the hunter girl, she holds promise. I might take her as my apprentice if she gets a good rank in this competition. Grant snorted. You're still hung up on that boy, William. Grant looked at the shepherd who was currently inching his way towards the depths of the forest. He had seen how the red-headed boy had escaped from his pursuers and Grant was very dissatisfied with him. Naturally, he was hoping that the boy could bring him another surprise. After all, he was there when William fought against the ruler of the forest. Just wait, Andy said as he sipped a mug of ale. I'm sure that he won't disappoint the 2 of us. That better be the case. I have a lot of expectations for him. How about we make a bet? Andy grinned as he proposed the stakes to his superior, half a month's salary if we can guess who will become the head prefect for the first years. What do you think? Do you think of me as a fool? Grant asked back. My salary is 6 times your salary. I have nothing to gain if I make a bet with you. Andy clicked his tongue because his plan to earn easy cash went down the drain. As he returned his attention to the red-headed boy, who was currently running away from 4 forest wolves, Andy felt as if his blood was boiling. It was not boiling from anger or rage, but in anticipation. He didn't know where his blind faith was coming from. However, when he saw William's performance in the forest, he had a feeling that this boy would change the way the other divisions looked at their martial class division. For the past few years, the martial class division had always been looked down upon because there weren't many promising talents who were able to fight against the representatives of the magic and spirit class divisions. Andy had long accepted this fact and buried his complaints deep inside his heart. However, every night, after the exams had ended, he would always see a shining banner fluttering in the darkness when he closed his eyes to sleep. Andy saw a boy, with flaming red hair, holding a golden banner in his hand. He rode on top of his Angorian war ibex, while his other hand was holding a lance that seemed to emit a light of its own. Andy recalled that one glorious moment when the boy raised his lance up high as if to challenge the world of darkness by himself. He watched in awe as the boy thrust his lance forward. With that single thrust, light illuminated the world. That scene was so beautiful, so surreal, that even someone as numb as Andy could feel that all hope was not lost. Perhaps, this time around, a miracle will happen, Andy thought as he stared at William with an almost fanatical gaze. Little shepherd, may you pierce through the darkness and illuminate the world. That way, people like us will be able to raise our heads up high and regain the honors that we have lost long ago. Chapter 135, Bruiser of Ancient Power. Ian and Isaac made their way towards the martial class division. It was not only them, but several others from the magic and spirit class divisions were walking in the direction of the House of Heroes. Every year, the nobles belonging to these divisions would look for capable subordinates that they could recruit under their wing. This had been a tradition in the Royal Academy, and the instructors allowed it. Most of those who belonged to the martial class were commoners. Some of them wanted to be employed by nobles in order to live a better life. Since that was the case, the Royal Academy didn't prevent this recruitment from happening. The only thing they could do was to ensure that the ones recruited from the martial class would be treated well by their employers. Isn't that Ella? Isaac asked as he pointed at an Angorian goat standing beside a delicate-looking boy with silver-grey hair. That is indeed Ella, EST agreed. Let's go. The 3 boys walked towards William's second mother with curious faces. Ella had noticed their arrival and bleated softly in greeting. Hello, are you looking after Ella? EST asked the grey-haired boy beside the goat. We are William's friends and we came here to see if he participated in the competition for the head prefect. My name is EST Wells Newmont. EST extended his hand for a handshake. The silver grey-haired boy looked at the offered hand and reluctantly raised his own. Kenneth introduced himself. Kenneth Xin Ashley. I am William's roommate. Nice to meet you. EST nodded his head and ended the handshake. He then appraised the young boy in front of him. Please, don't stare at me too much, Kenneth said as he took a step back. I feel uncomfortable when people stare and crowd around me. Sorry if I offended you. EST apologized. I was just curious because you are William's roommate. I am not offended. Kenneth averted his gaze. It's just that, this was the second time that someone took the initiative to shake my hand. My first time was with William. The atmosphere immediately became awkward because EST didn't know how to continue the conversation. In the end, he decided to look at the viewing crystal in front of him and see what the red-headed boy was up to. What is he doing? Ian asked as he tilted his head in confusion. Why is he sitting on a log and whistling using a leaf instead of collecting points? Doesn't he know that you need to collect points in order to become the head prefect? Perhaps he is waiting until the last day before he makes his move. Isaac proposed. A day inside the enchanted forest is equivalent to 8 hours out here in the real world. The competition has just begun, so there is plenty of time for William to make a comeback. Even so, why is he looking so carefree? Ian frowned. It makes me want to punch his face. EST, Kenneth, Isaac. Me. Ella lowered her head and pointed her horns in Ian's direction. It was just a joke. I was just joking, Ella. Ian immediately pacified William's second mother. He had forgotten how overprotective Ella could be when it came to the annoying red-headed boy. Me. Okay, I won't mention it again. Me. Ella raised her head and returned her attention to her baby. Ian patted his chest in relief because he knew how deadly Ella's horns could be in a real battle. The Angorian goat had spent a lot of time with William and knew what he was thinking. Although the 4 children around her didn't know what his plans were, Ella realized it the moment William sat on the log and started to use the leaf to whistle. 10 minutes later, the 4 boys noticed a single deer move towards William's location. It sniffed the air as if trying to smell if there was any danger that lurked around it. After confirming that there wasn't anything that could threaten it around, it walked unhurriedly towards the boy that was sitting on the log. This deer was one of the white-tailed deer that inhabited the enchanted forest. When it was only 4 meters away from William, it started to make mewing sounds as if talking to him in their language. To the children's surprise, William made the same mewing sounds as the deer. They watched in amazement as the two conversed with each other. William conversed with the deer for 2 minutes before he stood from the log he was sitting on. The white-tailed deer then started to walk towards the eastern side of the enchanted forest and William followed behind it. After half an hour of walking, William arrived in a clearing surrounded by lush grasses beside a river. There were hundreds of white-tailed deer grazing upon the grass and all of them raised their heads when they sensed the new arrival. William's eyes fell upon the giant white deer at the center of the herd who was looking back at him with a calm countenance. The giant deer was over 4 meters tall, and its majestic antlers shone like a sharpened blade as the light of the sun fell upon its regal splendor. The red-headed boy then used his appraisal skill to understand more about this proud creature who was an apex beast within the enchanted forest. Spire. Noble creature. Bruiser of ancient power. Threat level, C, high. Can be added to the herd. Success rate, 20%. The noble protector of the white-tailed deer. This creature is gentle by nature. However, when someone or something threatens the safety of its herd, it will charge head-on with the intention to kill. It has the ability to make its antlers as sharp as blades to cut through any foes who stand in its way. The spire has the ability called Eternal Guardian, which has allowed it to double its size and increase its power threefold for a short period of time. The spire also has the ability called Call to Arms, which increases the strength of its herd by 50%. This creature has no known weakness. As expected. It is strong, William thought as he read the description of the spire. The sea of white-tailed deer parted as the spire walked towards William. The alphas of the herd walked alongside it. Although these alpha deer's threat levels were only at the D grade, William didn't dare underestimate them because they had the advantage of numbers. Even so, William wasn't afraid. He didn't come here for a confrontation. He came to ask a favor. Speak, what is your reason for coming, shepherd? The spire said in a commanding tone. It was talking to William using telepathy and this act caught the red-headed boy by surprise. You can talk. You also know that I'm a shepherd. William asked. How? I don't always try to talk with humankind. However, I made an exception just for you. As for your other question, do you really not know, or are you just pretending that you don't know? The spire asked back. Its tone was laced with disbelief. You, who have been touched by the eternal guardian god of the herds, should know why we are having this conversation. If not for this, I would have already killed you, the spire added in a firm manner. William scratched his head. He was unaware that his shepherd job class wasn't as simple as he thought it was. He already had his suspicions when he saw that certain creatures that belonged to the herd category could be added to his own. After he heard the spire's comments, he now believed that his hunch was spot on. I will ask you again, shepherd. The spire lowered its head and stared William straight in the eyes. What is your purpose for coming here? William decided to come clean and state his purpose for coming. I came to ask for a favor. A favor? Yes, there is something that I need to ask from you, mighty guardian. The spire eyed William before reluctantly nodding its head. Speak. I want to know what kind of favor you would ask of me, shepherd. William took a deep breath before saying what was on his mind. I humbly ask that you allow me to. Chapter 136, Night Raid Inside the Enchanted Forest Part 1. Sorry, but your request is impossible to grant, the spire said after it heard what William had to say. Even if I agreed, we will gain nothing from it aside from the hostility of the other creatures in the enchanted forest. How about I add this to the equation? William showed something to the spire that made its eyes widen. Well, with that then your request doesn't sound too bad, the spire admitted. However, it is still not enough. Although it will give me some advantages, my herd will still have to risk their lives, no? This is something I cannot accept. True. William crossed his arms over his chest. He understood that the overprotective guardian really cared about its herd. This was something that William admired and he didn't want to make things difficult for it. Then how about we change the conditions a bit? William proposed. What do you have in mind, Shepherd? The spire inquired. How about we do this instead? Contrary to what the instructors had expected, the majority of the candidates didn't choose to wait for the last day of the competition. Some of them formed parties and hunted down those who had less numbers than them. Even Drake and Spencer had a hard time fighting them off. Although they were stronger than the candidates, fighting against 6 of them at the same time still posed problems for them. Since there was no hope of victory, they chose to decisively retreat. Ironically, these 2 boys met when the sun was about to set. Both of them vowed to fight against each other the moment their paths intersected, but right now, they were not in the mood for a battle. Both of them had suffered some injuries due to the united front of some of the students that formed teams. There were even teams that formed alliances with each other which made the slaughter of their rivals one-sided. In the end, the 2 decided to form a non-aggression pact with each other due to their current circumstances. I didn't think I'd see the day when the 2 of us needed to fight side by side, Spencer spat on the ground in annoyance. Do you think I want to either? Drake snorted. The weaklings really know how to band together. It's so annoying to deal with them. Then, what should we do? The way things are going, we won't stand a chance even if the 2 of us team up together. I'll think of something. For now, let's just rest. I am tired from all that running. Spencer nodded his head. They were not in the condition to fight with anyone at the moment. After drinking some healing potions, the injuries in his body were healed, but his exhaustion still remained. Somewhere in the forest, a beautiful girl with long black hair leaned against the tree branch as she surveyed her surroundings. The bow and arrow in her hands rested over her lap. As soon as she felt that something was amiss, she would immediately take her battle stance and notch her arrow on her bow. Her name was Priscilla. She was the archer who attempted to kill William when the competition had just started. On the back of her hand, red numbers appeared forming the number 30. Yes, she had killed 30 candidates all by herself. Although she was still far from her goal of 100, she was not in a hurry to hunt for more. Right now, she was resting and conserving her strength. Night had just fallen, and it would be too dangerous to move around in the darkness. It was then when she felt the forest start to vibrate. She immediately stood up on top of the branch as she extended her senses to investigate what was happening around her. The ground, the trees and even the wind seemed to tremble. Priscilla knew that this was not a good sign, so she climbed to the top of the tree she was resting in and erased her presence. She had a feeling that this was going to be a long and dangerous night. Conrad, with this you are only a step away from becoming the head prefect, a boy wearing glasses flattered the boy who sat on a log in front of the campfire. It's still too early to say that we've already won the battle, Conrad replied. We should only let our guard down once the announcement has been made. The boy named Conrad had very sharp features. His eyes were like those of a hawk, but that didn't affect his good looks. His reddish-brown hair, and hazel eyes, made him a very attractive boy. Born in a family of marquises, Conrad had known at an early age that he must grasp every opportunity that would enable him to become stronger and increase his rank. His first step was to become the head prefect and use his position to form connections with profitable partners that would help him rise up in the ranks of nobility. He was not satisfied with being the third son of his family. He wanted his own lands, authority, and power. Because of this, he had polished his social skills and managed to convince these people to work under him. On the back of Conrad's right hand was the number 20. His subordinates had helped him deal the last blow to the candidates so that their points would belong to him. The number of people in his party was 10. Right now, they were the biggest faction within the Enchanted Forest, and a favorite of some of the instructors in the martial division. As he was talking, one of his subordinates stood up and scanned the surroundings. Did you hear that? A chubby boy with dark brown hair asked as he continued to remain vigilant. I didn't hear anything, the boy wearing glasses replied. Why? Is there something wrong? I heard distant rumblings coming from the center of the forest, the chubby boy replied absent-mindedly. If my hunch is right, something is happening and it is definitely something big. Everyone in Conrad's group stared at the chubby boy with serious expressions. They didn't doubt his warning because the chubby boy was an excellent scout. He was always the first person in the group to detect the position of the students that they had hunted down earlier in the day. Do you think it poses a threat to our group? Conrad asked. His hazel eyes looked at the chubby boy and waited for his answer. My hunch tells me that it is so, the chubby boy replied. I'm afraid that we need to increase the number of the night watch just to be on the safe side. Very well. Conrad agreed. We will follow your advice. Conrad was about to say more when he heard a scream in the distance. The sound of beast roars and howls followed suit as the scream died down like a fleeting dream. The entire group immediately stood up and readied their weapons. Dave, take us immediately to a place that you deem as safe. Conrad ordered. I'm afraid that it's already too late. The chubby boy licked his lips as he scanned his surroundings. There is no more safe place inside the Enchanted Forest. Another loud scream pierced the night and all the remaining candidates felt the hairs on the back of their necks stand on end. The number of screams were becoming more frequent and each scream was laced with fear and desperation. Drake and Spencer were running in the opposite direction of where the screams were coming from. They knew by instinct that those poor souls had encountered a tragedy and it was not caused by human hands. I've heard in the past that the beasts inside the Enchanted Forest would occasionally attack the students that appeared inside it, Spencer said as he continued to run. However, this is something unheard of. Drake gritted his teeth as he forced his legs to keep pace with Spencer. He was more of a fighter type, and specialized in strong attacks instead of mobility, so he was having trouble with being forced to run for long periods of time. This is no longer a raid that we can handle on our own, Drake replied with a grim expression. This can already be compared to a beast tide. As Drake finished his sentence, the loud howls, roars, and shrieks of the creatures in the enchanted forest reached their ears. Another scream resounded in the forest, but it was soon snuffed out like a dying flame. This night is no ordinary night. For this was a night where everything was going to come to an end. Chapter 137, Night Raid Inside the Enchanted Forest Part 2. Don't panic. They're just grade D beasts. Hold your ground, a boy wielding two short swords ordered as he fought against an alpha forest wolf. His group had hurriedly retreated the moment they heard the first dying scream. However, they were forced to engage the beasts that had lunged at them from the shadows. It was then when they realized that they had already been surrounded. More than 20 alpha wolves leapt out from the trees and engaged them in battle. The skirmish was fierce as the students and beasts collided in a deadly battle to the death. What the students didn't know was that all the beasts within the enchanted forest were well versed in fighting with humans. This was, after all, one of the training grounds where the first, second, third, and fourth year students came to train their martial skills. Naturally, their opponents were these same beasts in the forest. As time went on, the beasts had learned how to fight against humans and had become more proficient over the passing of time. Even if the alpha wolves were only grade D beasts, they were more than enough to deal with first-year students who were still wet behind the ears. The most powerful student in the group unleashed a flurry of strikes towards one of the alpha wolves which almost ended its life. When the death blow was about to connect, a wolf paw appeared out of nowhere and struck the boy in his chest. The students tried to regroup, but the wolves blocked their path. It was at that moment when a large wolf eyed them as if they were the most delicious delicacies in the world. The 3-meter-tall wolf with a silver horn on the middle of its forehead howled. It was the one who attacked the strongest student in the party and protected its subordinate. Longhorn Timber Wolf, the boy wielding two short swords cried out in alarm. That's a Class C beast. Everyone, run. The Longhorn Timber Wolf bared its fangs and bit down on the injured boy that it had just attacked. The boy was too injured to fight back and immediately turned into particles of light, which brought despair to the rest of his group. They were still able to defend each other due to their group's strongest warrior, but now that he was gone, their formation easily crumbled into pieces. More screams resounded in the night followed by a powerful wolf howl. The other creatures in the forest who heard the Timber Wolf's declaration roared in reply. What the Timber Wolf had said caused a frenzy among the other creatures who were busy hunting down the students in the forest. They would not allow the Timber Wolf to get ahead of them and gain the rewards that were promised by the red-headed boy. Excluding you, there are only 15 more humans remaining in the forest, the spire stated as it raised its head to look at the moon. I've been in this forest for a very long time and this is the first time I've seen such an event. I guess this is to be expected of the one chosen by our eternal guardian. Spire, don't be too overconfident, William reprimanded the beast. Never underestimate humans. They are the most cunning and vicious species on the planet. Although we might be winning now, it is too early to tell who is going to have the last laugh. True, the spire admitted. Even so, this is already a good result, no? Indeed. William nodded his head. To be honest, this is already better than I expected. The spire turned its head to look at the boy riding on its back. Anyone would be moved by the rewards that you have offered. Only fools will reject this kind of opportunity to become stronger. So you say, but, didn't you reject the offer I gave you earlier? William teased. If you agreed, wouldn't you have become the dominant beast in this enchanted forest? How come you didn't grab hold of that opportunity? You don't understand, William. The spire shook his head. We are creatures of the herd and the deer of the forest are pacifists. We don't like to fight, but prefer to spend our lives living in peace. Even if I become stronger than the others, then what of it? It will just disrupt the balance that has been maintained for more than a century. William didn't try to persuade the spire because he knew that it was a noble and proud beast. He just told it to come and find him if it ever changed its mind in the future. The red-headed boy and the guardian of the herd had created an equal pact with each other. Spire became a member of William's herd, but he couldn't summon it to fight with him in a casual manner. The spire told him that it would remain inside the enchanted forest and protect its herd like it had done over the years. However, if William were to truly need its strength, it would answer to his call, but he could only ask for its help thrice. After that, Spire would leave William's herd, as agreed upon in their contract. Only 12 remain, the Spire said in a soft voice. Also, we have found the target you asked us to find. Shall we go? William summoned his bow and quiver filled with arrows before nodding his head. It's payback time. Drake and Spencer were fighting back to back against the titanic blaze bear and the tattooed killer serpent. The threat level of both of these creatures were in the upper ranks of grade C. The two geniuses were having a hard time dealing with their powerful attacks because the two beasts were very sly. They had already unleashed their trump cards in order to prevent themselves from dying, but they still had underestimated how cunning their opponents were. Using the powerful body of the titanic blaze bear as a shield, the tattooed killer serpent would spray its acid venom at their blind spots. Although they were able to react in time, they were still unable to prevent themselves from receiving the titanic blaze bear's powerful attacks, which hit as hard as a charging bull. If not for the high-grade armor that they wore, both of them would have already died during the encounter. As the two beasts performed a series of attacks, the two boys began to lose ground and focused all of their attention on defending. Because of this, they didn't hear the whistling sound of the wind until it was too late. Two arrows struck their backs and pierced their armor, which caused both of them to curse internally. The bear and the snake didn't miss this opportunity and finished both of them off. Drake and Spencer both had unresigned faces before their bodies turned into particles of light. Never in their wildest dreams did they think that they would be eliminated from the competition in this manner. When their bodies disappeared, 2 red orbs shot towards Priscilla, who was busy making her escape. After killing Drake and Spencer, she was no longer in the mood to hunt for other students. She had already decided to hide until the competition ended. Priscilla jumped from branch to branch with expert movements as if she was used to moving in this manner. Suddenly, while she was still in midair, she heard a subtle buzz from behind her. Chapter 138, An Archer's Pride Part 1. The girl immediately summoned a round silver shield from her storage ring and curled her body up behind it. A loud clanging resounded in the night as the steel arrow collided with the silver shield. Priscilla immediately used the whip hanging at her waist and lashed out at a tree branch. The whip coiled around the branch, preventing her from falling directly on the ground. Another whistling sound pierced the air and the whip she was hanging by was split in two. Priscilla gritted her teeth and spread her arms wide. Her clothes were specially made with a built-in gliding feature that allowed her to glide for short distances. 2 wing-like devices extended from under her arms up to the clothes on her waist. As the black-haired girl landed safely on the ground, her clothes returned to their normal state. She then raised her head and stared into the distance that was covered by darkness. I should have focused on eliminating you earlier. Priscilla sighed. Now it's too late for that. A giant white deer appeared out of the darkness and stared at the girl with a calm expression. William, who was seated on its back, had already notched an arrow on his bow. Are you feeling unresident? William asked. Right now, only you are the last remaining candidate in this enchanted forest. Everyone else has been dealt with. The black-haired beauty held the bow in her hand firmly and gazed back at William with an unwavering expression. I, Priscilla Norell Grandfall, challenge William von Ainsworth to a duel, Priscilla stated with a serious expression. Do you dare to accept? The girl's brown eyes turned golden as she waited for William's answer. She knew that the red-headed boy had no reason to accept her challenge because the creature he was riding on was more than enough to end her life. Even so, her pride as an archer, and a member of the Order of Grey Wind, wouldn't allow her to simply surrender. William gazed at the beautiful girl in front of him. The color of her hair reminded William of his own hair color when he was still alive on Earth. To be honest, he never expected to see a girl with the same features of those who had lived in his own world. Very well, but on one condition, William replied with a smile. If I win, you will become my vice prefect. And, if I win? Priscilla asked back. If you win, then you will allow my Mama Ella to live in my dormitory room, William answered. Also, you are not allowed to order me around. This is something that you have to agree to or I won't consent to this duel between the two of us. Priscilla frowned. She didn't know who this Mama Ella was and William's offer didn't give her any advantages, aside from becoming the head prefect. Even so, this was an offer she couldn't refuse. Either accept or die. That was William's hidden ultimatum and she would be stupid to reject the olive branch that he had extended. Fine, I accept your conditions. Priscilla agreed. Swear upon the God of Oaths that you will honor your promise, William ordered. Although you may not believe it, the God of Oaths and I are pretty close. If you break your word, prepare yourself for eternal suffering. Somewhere in the Temple of the 10,000 Gods, the God of Oaths sneezed. He then rubbed his nose and looked into the distance. A pretty girl must be thinking of me right now, the god said with a confident smile. Why was I born handsome? Have you no shame, you old fart? Lily asked. Stop saying nonsense and pay up. 3 dozen lollipops and 3 boxes of chocolate eclairs. That will be 100,000 god points. Lily, we are good friends, the God of Oaths said with a smile. How about you give me a little discount? HMP, fine. Lily snorted. 95,000 god points. Deal. The God of Oaths hurriedly paid the lowly goddess. He then walked away while whistling a happy tune. The God of Contracts bought these sweets as a gift to his sugar babies. What many didn't know was that the God of Contracts was a simp that cared for the cute young ladies who had become his devout followers. Priscilla took a deep breath and swore upon the God of Oaths. This was the first time she'd heard of this kind of god and she thought that William was only joking with her. Even so, since this was her last chance, she could at least pretend to follow the procedure for a chance of survival. Good, now I'm giving you exactly 2 minutes to run away, William gazed at her with a calm expression. After 2 minutes, our one-on-one battle will begin. Don't worry, the beasts will not hinder or attack you during this time. This will be a one-on-one battle, just like you wanted. Priscilla nodded her head and ran in the direction opposite of where William sat. She needed to distance herself from William so that she could fight to the fullest using her bow and arrows. For the first time since she entered the Royal Academy, the black-haired girl felt her blood boiling due to anticipation. She had fought with many archers in the Kingdom of Frisia, but this was the first time she would be fighting against someone in the Hellan Kingdom. The Kingdom of Frisia specialized in archery skills. It was the kingdom where the best archers and arcane archers were born. Deep inside, she was thankful that William agreed to her unreasonable challenge. Even though she still didn't understand why the red-headed boy agreed to her request, she didn't think much about it. What was going on inside her head was the opportunity to see just how powerful the archers of the Hellan Kingdom were. What she didn't know was that the bow arts that William used didn't belong to the Hellan Kingdom. It belonged to the system. The system had chosen the most suitable bow art it could so that it would be compatible with William's current constitution. It was not only Priscilla's blood that was boiling. William could also feel his competitive spirit rising as he gripped the bow in his hand. Back in Lant, John and Trent had taught him how to wield the bow. Trent was a sentinel, a bona fide dragon slayer, and the knowledge and techniques he had shared with William were priceless. John, on the other hand, specialized in mounted archery. Riding his partner, Blitz, he was a force to be reckoned with in aerial combat. These two masters didn't skimp on imparting their knowledge to William, which made him improve by leaps and bounds. Although the system had given him the cheat to learn archery in a heartbeat, the proficiency that he gained during those countless days of training was not a joke either. William practiced shooting his bow almost every day. It had become a habit for him, just like how he went into withdrawal when he didn't drink his mama's milk. The reason he accepted Priscilla's challenge was because this was the first time he would be battling against another archer. He deemed that it was necessary to gain experience in a real duel because it might be helpful for him in the future. Deep inside, he also wanted to prove to his two teachers that their days of teaching him were not in vain. The spire looked back at William and sighed. It couldn't understand why the boy decided to do something so foolish. William had no need to accept the challenge because the spire could easily kill Priscilla with a single move. Humans never fail to astound me. The spire sighed as it looked up at the moon. It knew that after this event, the beasts inside the enchanted forest would never be the same again. Chapter 139, An Archer's Pride Part 2. Good. 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 Andy clapped his hands in happiness. A one-on-one battle between archers. What a way to end the competition for the head prefect. Grant, who was sitting beside Andy, had a dumbfounded expression on his face as he looked at the red-headed boy in the viewing crystal. An hour ago, he was still monitoring Conrad, Drake, Spencer, and Priscilla in the viewing crystal. However, the sudden intrusion of the beasts had brought the competition to a hasty end. It was just as Andy said, only William and Cecile remained inside the enchanted forest. The winner of their duel would decide on who the next head prefect would be. Since Grant hadn't been paying attention to William earlier, he didn't see how the boy managed to convince the creatures in the forest to fight for his cause. He tried to ask Andy what had happened earlier, but the annoying hunter only gave him a smug smile. Clearly, he had no intention of telling Grant what had happened during the time he was not paying attention to William. The students outside the House of Heroes had the same thoughts as Grant. They didn't know how and why the competition for the martial classes had turned out like this. All they knew was that the handsome red-headed boy and the beautiful black-haired girl had both agreed to a one-on-one duel. As expected, the students from the Magic and Spirit Division classes looked at the last two combatants with interest. The boys were secretly cheering for Priscilla, while the starry-eyed girls were cheering for William. The way the young boy sat on top of the spire was truly a sight to behold. He was like a prince from a fairy tale who had come to rescue the princess. Kenneth, Ian, Isaac, and Ella had watched William from the very start. They still couldn't believe that the boy had succeeded in convincing the apex beasts inside the forest using bribes that they couldn't possibly reject unless there was something wrong in their heads. Young master, should we also use this strategy when the competition for head prefect in our dormitory begins? Ian whispered. It's worth a try, EST replied after pondering for a brief moment. Make sure to call Herman and make the necessary arrangements once William's competition is over. By your will, young master. Ian bowed. Kenneth had a complicated expression as he looked at the handsome boy who was sitting on top of the giant white deer. Just like EST and the others, he didn't expect this kind of outcome. Part of him wanted to praise William for his quick-witness and the other part of him wanted to nag at the boy for being too bold and daring. Even so, deep in his heart, a seed of admiration started to sprout. Although what William did seemed quite easy, not everyone had the ability to do so. Even Kenneth had to admit that he wouldn't be able to do the same even if he was placed in the same situation. This was also why he couldn't keep himself from being impressed by William's actions. 2 minutes passed and the sound of the wind whistling echoed in the forest. William and Priscilla had started their battle and it was truly a sight to behold. Both combatants were fairly skilled in using the bow that one couldn't tell who was getting the upper hand in their battle. Priscilla notched a green arrow on her bow and took aim. The moment she released the arrow, a gust of wind made her black hair dance wildly behind her back. William immediately rolled on the ground to evade the attack and the tree he was using as a shield exploded into pieces. Elemental arrow of wind, William muttered. What a scary lady. The red-headed boy propped himself off the ground and charged in Priscilla's direction. When he was only 20 meters away from her, he was forced to jump to the side to evade another elemental arrow that the girl had shot in his direction. Contrary to William's expectations, the arrow exploded in midair and sent out a blinding flash of light which caught William by surprise. His vision was covered in white as he hastily closed his eyes in order to prevent Priscilla from taking advantage of his current situation. The black-haired girl knew that she had succeeded in her blinding attack and immediately went in for the kill. She fired consecutive shots towards William, and the latter dodged them by rolling on the ground until his head bumped into a tree. The students who were watching the battle laughed out loud as William held his head in pain. Even EST and Ian, who had a serious expression earlier, were all smiles as they saw the arrogant and narcissistic boy suffering from Priscilla's brutal counterattack. Ella simply watched with amusement. She was not worried about William getting blinded or anything. After all, they had suffered worse under Oliver's and Celine's hands during their training. How could she not know that William was only putting on an act in order to lower his opponent's guard? She and her baby would often spend half of the day in eternal darkness and mastered the art of finding their enemy amidst the world that was painted black. Priscilla was getting annoyed because none of her arrows were landing on her target. She was sure that William was suffering from temporary blindness, but it would only last for a few minutes. Out of desperation, she decided to move to close-quarter combat. She was not only proficient in using the bow, she was also trained to fight using short swords and daggers while she was in the Kingdom of Frisia. To her surprise, William stood up from the ground with his eyes still closed and nocked an arrow on his bow. He then fired a point-blank shot in Priscilla's direction which almost ended the battle. Fortunately, Priscilla's heightened senses allowed her to dodge to the side as she closed the gap between the red-headed boy. Sensing that his attack had missed, William twisted the bow in his hand and it miraculously changed its shape. Instead of a bow, the red-headed boy held two curved scimitars in his left and right hands. He then took a step forward and executed a deadly flurry of blows that almost blew Priscilla off her feet. When William changed the form of his bow, he hurriedly ordered the system to change his job class to fighter. Although he spent only 1.5 months in training this job class with his grandpa, it was more than enough for William to enhance his repertoire in close-quarter armed combat. The red-headed boy's series of attacks was like a deadly sword dance. This slashing maneuver was under the dual-wielding specialties of his executioner war art, basic, from the fighter job class. Priscilla gritted her teeth as she was forced to defend herself from William's overpowering move. With a loud shout, she twisted the short swords in her hand and applied half of her full strength in an effort to disarm the shepherd. Her short swords, along with William's scimitars, flew an arc into the air and dropped on the ground behind them. As a last resort, Priscilla used the disarming skill that she had been taught by her father, that was meant to be used for this exact situation. Using the strength in her legs, she closed the distance and prepared to deliver a straight punch to William's chest in order to turn the tide of battle. It was at this moment that William opened his eyes and smiled. The effect of the flash arrow had ended and he had regained his vision. Crane wing, William said as he took the crane-style stance and moved his body forward. Due to his movements, he dodged Priscilla's full-powered strike that was meant to end the battle. As the girl's body continued to move forward due to momentum, William used nimble body movements to close the distance. Priscilla hurriedly turned her body around to kick the boy, but was met with an open palm strike that hit her squarely in her stomach area. The blow took Priscilla's breath away as her body bent down through reflex. William then moved behind her back and summoned his bow and adamantium arrow. "Since you like backstabbing people so much, I'll let you feel what it's like to get backstabbed," William said before firing the arrow at point-blank range. The adamantium arrow pierced behind Priscilla's back, and made its way to her heart. Priscilla, the beautiful girl with black hair, fell down on the ground, and turned into particles of light. "How dreamy," a girl exclaimed. "Oh. If only he was a prince, I'd definitely marry him." "You don't want him? I'll take him then," her best friend declared from the side. "You can't." "I can." Similar conversations were happening between the girls of the magic and spirit class divisions. They were very impressed with William's performance and all of them were planning to make him their subordinate. Not to mention, William was a half-elf. Although his race wasn't rare, they were blessed with good looks and the red-headed boy was particularly dashing during the fight against the black-haired archer. Even some of the boys felt like having a subordinate like William would increase their prestige. Some were already thinking of ways on how to bribe William to become part of their entourage. "I do not wish for dominion, but there are things that I must protect no matter what," William said softly. He then looked at the moon in the sky and sighed. Spire walked in front of him and lowered its majestic head. William lightly patted its head before telling it to properly distribute the rewards that he had promised to the beasts of the enchanted forests. The girls who saw this scene were starstruck because Spire was a very noble and beautiful creature. Standing beside the boy made him look like a hero that was just taking a stroll in the wilderness. Some of the girls even thought of asking William to become their lover. With such a handsome and powerful warrior by their side, they would definitely be the envy of the other girls in the academy. The red-headed boy was unaware of what the people outside the domain were thinking. He was just glad that the competition was finally over. He then gave a meaningful glance to the Spire and the latter nodded its head in acknowledgement. "See you later, shepherd. Take care, guardian of the herd." As if waiting for that cue, William's body turned into particles of light and he was ejected from the domain. The battle for the position of the head prefect was over and William had won against all odds. With this, a new era would dawn upon the first years of the martial class division in the Helan Royal Academy. Whether this change would destroy the balance of the hierarchy that had been established inside the academy, would be found out in the not-so-distant future. Chapter 140, I Fought for Love. The entirety of the first-year students lined up inside the hall of the martial class division. Since they were outsiders, the students of the magic and spirit division classes stayed outside the premises and watched the viewing crystals in front of them. They were waiting for William's first speech as the head prefect of the Solaris dormitory. Soon, a handsome half-elf with hair as bright as flames walked towards the podium. His light green eyes were clear and bright as he faced the hundreds of students who were looking at him with serious expressions. "Good day to all of you. My name is William von Ainsworth." William started his speech. "I am a shepherd that hails from the countryside of Lant." The buzzing sound of murmurs spread across the hall when William gave his introductions. Even those who were watching him from outside were surprised when he said that he was a shepherd from the countryside. "I came here today, to tell all of you why I joined the competition for the position of head prefect," William continued his explanation. He then looked at the entrance of the hall and made a gesture. "Mama, please, join me." The door of the great hall opened and a white and fluffy goat, that was only a meter tall, walked forward with confident steps. The students watched her go up onto the stage and stand by William's side. William lovingly placed his hand over Ella's back and faced everyone in the room with a smile. "Mama, please greet everyone." "Me." The students looked at William and the goat with weird expressions, but the red-headed boy paid them no mind. Instead, he raised his chin in an arrogant manner and stated his reason. "Yes. The reason why I joined the competition was to ensure that my mama Ella would be able to stay by my side during my stay here at the Royal Academy," William said firmly. "Perhaps, Some of you think that this is a very absurd reason. Others may think that it was a stupid one. However, I beg to disagree. My mama Ella is no ordinary goat. She was the one that raised me since I was a baby. William's declaration brought another round of murmurs, and even the instructors glanced at the goat with curious expressions. All of us have important people in our lives. People we care for, people we want to protect, and people we want to love. William was unfazed by the murmurs and continued his speech. They could be our parents, our brothers, sisters, grandparents, neighbors, friends, lovers, and acquaintances. But, let me ask all of you, is your love greater than mine? Is the love you have for your lover greater than my love for my mama Ella? When William asked this question, many people wanted to answer, but William didn't give them a chance to do that. The answer is simple: love cannot be measured, William said tenderly. I will not tell you that the love you feel for your loved ones is less than mine, because like I said, love cannot be measured. Yes, the reason why I fought in the competition was for love. I didn't know how strong my opponents were, how cunning they were, and how determined they were to win. Because, in my eyes, these factors were not important. As members of the martial classes, there will come a time when we have to face opponents that are stronger than us, opponents that are way out of our league. When that time comes, our only choice is either to fight or to flee. I chose to fight, because my reason for fighting is for the one I love. Regardless of the consequences, no matter the price, I must win. And win, I did. The girls who had become William's fans felt their heart flutter. The way he declared that he had fought the competition for love was so suave that they couldn't keep themselves from imagining that the person he fought for was not the goat, but them. Kenneth, who was watching William from below the podium, looked at him with tender eyes. He had already known how much William cared for Ella, but he didn't know the extent of how much the red-headed boy loved his second mother. Even EST had to admire that William's speech moved him. Ian and Isaac felt the same. They too had people they cared for and wanted to protect. William was right, love was something that could not be measured. The great hall descended into silence, as the students unconsciously clenched their hands. They could feel that their blood was boiling because of William's reason for fighting. They had imagined themselves fighting against a foe that they couldn't defeat. The majority of them thought of only one thing, and that was to run and escape with their lives. Somehow, they felt ashamed and inferior to William. They could feel his strong determination to win. Even those who initially held grudges towards him, found themselves unable to hate him. Those of the martial classes respect the strong. Even if they couldn't accept the outcome of the competition, they had to admit that they couldn't achieve what William had done inside the enchanted forest. Of course, I know that some of you are dissatisfied with me. William smiled and casually flipped his hair. But, what of it? I admit that some of you may be stronger than me, but physical strength alone doesn't win battles. The fact that the one standing here is me and not you means that my determination to win is stronger than yours. If you feel that I'm not worthy of my position, then feel free to challenge me, William declared. But, only after you have defeated all of the candidates that participated in the competition. This is only right and proper, no. Excuse me? Do you think you can challenge the final boss without fighting the underlings first? Sorry, not happening. EST, Ian, and Isaac smirked when they heard William's shameless words. He allowed the students to challenge him, but they had to fight everyone before they earned the right to challenge William. William was not a fool. If they wanted to fight him, then he would definitely make them suffer first. However, to ensure that they wouldn't do the shameful act of not fighting against the challengers, the red-headed boy decided to throw in some insurance. We are martial students. If we don't even dare to accept challenges, then we should just pack up and leave the academy, William said in a righteous manner. As the head prefect of the Solaris dormitory, I will expel any student who doesn't fight in a serious manner. Now, who wants to challenge me? Raise your hands. Drake and Spencer resolutely raised their hands. They were still unresigned by what had happened in the competition. Both of them knew that none of the first years were their match, so they were not afraid of one-on-one battles. William sneered internally as he gave the two boys a refreshing smile. Since the two of you are bold enough to challenge me, then I will grant you a battle you will never forget. I, William von Ainsworth, hereby order that all the members of the Solaris dormitory will fight these two brave souls at the same time. Yes, it will be the Solaris team vs Drake and Spencer. Anyone who performs exceptionally will be given the position of vice prefect. All the students gasped in surprise. Vice prefect? Isn't that almost the same as becoming the head prefect? Under one person, but above hundreds of students, this was a position that could be considered as the next best thing. Priscilla had agreed to become William's vice prefect in the Enchanted Forest, but she felt that she was undeserving of the role. This was also the reason why she talked to William to have their contract revoked. The red-headed boy admired the black-haired beauty's resolution, so he agreed to her request. William felt that if he forced Priscilla to become his vice prefect using the contract, it would just make things awkward for the both of them. Since that was the case, he planned to award the position of vice prefect as a prize to the person who would perform exceptionally in this scheme that he had concocted. All the first years stared at Drake and Spencer as if they were the most delicious food that they had seen in their lives. Some of them were already itching to start the battle and become the vice prefect of the Solaris dormitory. Shameless. Ian almost spat on the ground. This fool really knows how to take advantage of his position. All the admiration he had for the boy earlier had evaporated into thin air.